The anime begins with a man being reincarnated into another world after being killed. Upon awakening, he sees strange people whom he does not know. He wonders who these people are. Then, he sees a status bar, realizing that he does not have a name yet, and that he has returned to level 1. At that moment, he discovers that his father is the Emperor, who names him Noah Ararat, the 13th Prince of the Empire. Since he was born with an affinity for water, the Emperor appoints him as the Lord of Almeria, the land of water. Following this, they notice that his water affinity has changed to rank S, and when they check his parameters, they change once again to rank SS, leaving everyone present impressed, as a talent of this magnitude had never been seen right at birth, announcing that an unprecedented great talent was born. Afterward, it is explained that the Mir's empire is the nation of warriors, which is established on a mountain range, and during its golden age, it accumulated great wealth, and the sons of the emperor are known as the imperial princes, admired by the entire population, among whom is little Noah, who is now 6 years old. These are the statistics that everyone else sees, but he sees them differently. This is the value he gives to the people below him. For example, the one he possesses in water affinity. A part of it is thanks to the Lord of Almeria title he received at birth, and the rest comes from his maidservants, which means he becomes more powerful when he increases his subordinates, and his level has no limit. Some time later, while he is eating, it is revealed that because he is 6 years old, he is limited in many things. At that moment, Evelyn introduces herself before him, a very beautiful and charming maidservant who is there to serve him. She informs him that his brothers, the Crown Prince and the 4th Prince, have arrived, and they wish for him to eat peacefully before meeting with them. However, Noah states that because he is the Crown Prince, he cannot keep them waiting, so he goes immediately to present himself before his brothers. However, Henry, the 4th Prince, asks him to drop the formalities, since he has always been very polite, even with people who are very close. At that point, the Crown Prince reveals that he has a gift for him, and a servant enters the room carrying a huge coffin, which emanates a very dark aura. Upon opening it, Noah can feel a very heavy energy from those who used that sword and were consumed by it, asking Prince Albert for help. Noah wonders what he just felt, but then his brother asks him to take the sword. Noah feels a bit suspicious, but since it is a gift from the Crown Prince, he cannot refuse, so he lifts it while his brother lets him know that its name is Leviathan, the most powerful magic water sword in the Empire, revealing that more than 120 people died trying to tame it. Then, the sword almost falls from his hand. However, Henry warns that he should not worry, because if he could not hold it, he would have already died upon touching it. And as far as anyone knows, normal people suffer too much just by holding the box. But he manages to take it because he possesses rank SS in water affinity. And thanks to him, they were able to see something interesting. With that, they withdraw, while Noah realizes that the prince put him to the test, but he has to remain quiet because he does not have status yet. Upon leaving the mansion, Henry asks Albert if he is sure, since he handed over a very valuable object into Noah's hands, but he replies that he delivered it because he has talent, and only for that reason. And Noah must know what it is like when the owner's own dog bites the hand that feeds it. At night, Noah asks Zoe what is happening with her. Since he notices that she is acting a bit strange, she tells him not to worry. However, Noah insists, and seeing his seriousness, she reveals that she was thinking about resigning, because a few days ago there was a flood in her village. Her family's field was destroyed, and since her mother lives alone, she was left without work. Therefore, her family members tell her that she should sell her body. She mentioned that her job is to take care of a prince. At that, Noah interrupts and requests silence, then informs her that her mother will also work in that mansion, and will receive a payment above average, and will also be able to stay in a house on the outskirts of the west of the capital. Zoe begins to cry and expresses her gratitude, while he, very serious, orders her to continue with her work, and then thinks that if a maidservant of his began to sell her body, that would greatly tarnish his reputation as the 13th prince. But since she is his maidservant, she will remain in his service forever. Next, he calls the butler Dylan and asks if he is aware of the flood that occurred in Duso. Dylan replies that he is, and seeing that he knows, Noah orders him to go buy all the land he can, because he is certain that thieves will appear trying to steal the assets of the ruined families, such as Zoe's family, and they will take charge of protecting them before that happens. Dylan reveals that he is very surprised, since despite this being the first time Noah faces something like this, he managed to anticipate it in an admirable manner, And now we discover that Noah has already experienced this countless times in his previous life, but he does not mention any of it to them. Dylan asks where they will get the money from, because at least 700,000 renes would be necessary. Noah thinks that it is normal for them to be frightened, since the average annual salary of a man in the capital is 120 renes, and his own annual salary is 8,000 renes. Adding the tributes from Almeria, the gifts from His Majesty, and other things, the money he possesses amounts to about 500,000 renes, which means 200,000 are still missing. But he has a solution, so he informs Dylan that they will have to sell the land they possess to the south of the capital. But Dylan replies that this land was a gift from the emperor, and selling it would be an act of treason. But Noah responds that this does not matter, and he is willing to receive a scolding from his father. Nobles have a duty and sometimes must sacrifice themselves and act for the welfare of the people, and this type of silent sacrifice is a privilege of the nobility. He orders the preparations to begin, but before leaving, Dylan expresses his gratitude, since he is also from that region. The next day, while they are preparing everything, Henry appears on his land. Noah quickly goes out to receive him, and all his employees pay their respects to him. Henry asks if they are going somewhere, and Noah informs him that he is going to buy the land of Duso where the floods occurred, and he will proceed to inspect it. Henry notices that he is also carrying the magic sword, and asks if he intends to use it. Noah makes it clear that even though he perceives a great power within it, the sword has not reacted since then, but he is carrying it as a precaution. He asks his brother if that was the only reason he came, and Henry confirms it, since Albert said something very strange, which caused them to investigate the sword. It appears that the thing possesses a will of its own, and only obeys the one it recognizes as its master. Noah understands that if it did not recognize him, it would have devoured him just as it did with the other people. His brother recommends that he take it if he wishes, but that he must not use it under any circumstances, and then he says goodbye. After arriving in Duso and observing the disaster, Noah orders Dylan to go to the registry, since seeing the destruction, it is possible that many property titles have been lost, and the best course of action would be to buy them following the official registry. Dylan leaves immediately, and Noah follows with Zoe so that she can guide him. Upon inspecting the crops, he understands that this year is lost. At that moment, they hear some noises, and notice that all the villagers are gathering to eat. They also note that it seems the Empire is doing something to help the people. However, when they taste the food, Noah notices that it is horrible and on the verge of spoiling. Even so, the villager comments that they cannot complain, because in that situation, the simple fact of being able to eat is already a luxury. But Noah does not consider it appropriate for the Empire to distribute something of that nature. Then Gar arrives there, an official who, upon inspecting the food they are distributing, covers his nose and comments that everything seems to be in order, while the individuals in charge of serving only smile, informing him that his portion is waiting for him at the mansion. At that, Noah asks if he is embezzling money, but Gar merely plays dumb, commenting that Noah is quite arrogant. He says that they are also suffering, and that whoever offers something must receive some privilege in return. The men begin to laugh, but Noah makes it clear that they underestimate him if they view him merely as a child. At that moment, the sword begins to release its aura, and Noah makes it clear that enriching oneself using the aid destined for the victims is a crime. Gar defends himself, and drawing his sword, warns that insulting him is insulting Lowen, the lord of that land. Noah responds that flattering the strong to oppress the weak brings damnation. The sword begins to glow, while Noah states that he will deliver a sentence to him, and reflects that the sword resembles Gar. He warns that this will be his punishment. Then the sword goes flying right to his side. He asks if it became irritated for being compared to Gar, because if that was the case, then the best thing to do is to demonstrate its power. The sword attempts to consume him, but Noah does not intend to be defeated, asserting that using power to oppress the weak is the action of cowards who fear that someone might be stronger than them. It is a waste to use this power to crush the weak, when it should be used to protect them. With a powerful will, Noah manages to dominate Leviathan, and with a single strike, he manages to decapitate Gar. The guards attempt to attack him, but Noah strikes the ground. This impact causes a jet of water, and when they look into the hole created, they cannot even see the bottom. At that point, Lowen arrives at the scene, asking what is happening. Gar's henchmen state that the child killed him, and upon seeing Noah, Lowen recognizes him quickly. Then, he kneels before him, apologizing and calling him the 13th Prince, introducing himself as Lowen Grimm. an official in charge of security for that region for a few days. As a servant of Prince Henry, Lowen notices that no one else is kneeling, and they inform everyone that they are in the presence of the 13th prince, so everyone quickly bows down. Noah informs them that they were embezzling the money meant for the food. For this reason, he has personally judged the leader of the gang, and he points out all of his accomplices, ordering him to ensure that they receive what they deserve. It will be necessary to cook again, which is why he requests that they also increase the portions and make the food more substantial. He asks if Lowen can accomplish this, and Lowen responds that he will do it even if it costs him his life. Quickly, all the villagers begin to praise the 13th prince, since thanks to them, they will be able to have a decent meal. Meanwhile, Albert is informed of everything that happened, being quite impressed upon discovering that Noah was not devoured, but instead dominated the sword, which means that he will be more useful than he imagined. After that, Noah meets with his father regarding the sale of the land that he had given him. Noah prepares himself for a scolding. However, he is quite impressed to see that his father thanks him, because thanks to what he did, those idiots could not take advantage of the floods, which would have caused both a natural and a human disaster. But Noah prevented resources from being wasted. Dealing with two catastrophes at the same time, the emperor asks his son how he discovered that, and Noah responds that it was pure coincidence, since one of his maidservants is from that village. His father responds that this was also the will of the gods, because it was there that he dominated the water sword. Noah is quite impressed to realize that his father already knew about it, and the emperor asks him to show his power, since it has been a long time since the last time he saw it. The person responsible for the appraisal shows the results, surprising the king upon seeing that Noah now possesses rank SSS. While Noah feels that he does not only need human subordinates, since the sword also counts, the emperor announces that he hopes to continue relying on Noah's strength, and he excitedly confirms this. On the other hand, we see how the public is marveled before a mysterious girl. She sings very well. Meanwhile, Noah travels to the capital, the political and cultural center of the country. He is guided by Zoe, who takes him to the tavern of the famous singer. Noah thinks that talented people are never too many. No matter how many there are, when the pink-haired girl begins to sing, Noah finds himself unable to believe her beautiful melody. While listening to her, he remembers that girl whose name was Alice, and even though she does not sing poorly at all, she still lacks a bit of technique, but it is possible to perceive that she sings with her soul and is completely dedicated. However, suddenly the singing is interrupted, and a group of thugs approaches Alice, asking what it is that she is doing in that place. The individuals responsible for the theater attempt to stop them, but they simply push them aside and surround the girl, warning that with what she earns, Alice will never manage to pay her father's debt. Alice responds that this is the only thing she knows how to do, but the bald man grabs her by the shirt, reminding her that she is a woman, and that there are many other ways to make quick money. They begin to act like perverts, while the entire audience merely watches in silence. But fortunately, Noah steps in, stopping them and advancing toward them while reciting the imperial laws, which state that a child is not obliged to pay the debts of their parents, and forcing a daughter to pay her father's debt with her own body is a crime. The bald man grabs him, advising him to be careful, but Noah summons his sword and with his aura causes damage to them, asking if they really want to continue. The bald man and his cowards flee from the place, warning that he will still pay for this, while Noah advises the person responsible for the theater that if that gang returns, they should tell them to come speak with him. Zoe hands a card to the man, and he is impressed upon discovering that Noah is an imperial prince. The public becomes quite frightened, but Noah simply ignores them and informs Alice that she sings very well. He asks how much money she earns per month to manage to survive. Nervously, she responds that she still has her mother's medical expenses. However, Noah interrupts her and makes it clear that he will give her 25 renes per month so that she can continue singing in peace, and that when she improves even more, he will increase her salary. Alice expresses her gratitude and Noah returns her hat, requesting that she continue singing with that wonderful voice. Sometime later, upon returning to his domains, Evelyn welcomes him and informs him that those individuals are waiting for him. Noah understands that they are the thugs from before, who probably already know that they offended the prince and are there to apologize. However, Noah orders them to be expelled and to ask them who they think they are to visit a prince whenever they please. Evelyn prepares to carry out his orders, but then Henry appears, congratulating his brother for making an excellent decision. since receiving that type of people would normally diminish the dignity of royalty and the princes. Noah confirms that he is right, but also reveals that he has another motive. He asks his brother to enter the mansion, and then mentions that he wants to help a singer. So by making those individuals believe that he remains furious, perhaps they will never dare to bother the girl again. Henry asks if she really sings that well, and Noah directly asks him to please not steal her from him. His brother responds that it is incredible that Noah can think of all this at his age, since Frank and Gary are almost the same age as him, and are not yet on the same level, as they are still children, especially Gary, who has not yet learned proper manners. Noah responds that one day he will learn, and thinks that even though they are all brothers, they do not share the same mother. Henry asks to talk about the sword, because he has already learned that Noah managed to dominate it. Noah reveals that indeed, just as Henry had mentioned, it possesses a will of its own, but Henry cannot understand how Noah manages to carry it, since it is too large for him. Noah responds that it is not that large, and when he summons it, Henry is quite impressed, wondering where it appeared from. Noah reveals that he had it hidden beneath his sleeve, and that it was the sword itself that taught him this trick. His brother cannot believe it, since it was kept for 200 years as a treasure, and there are no previous records of anything similar, which is why he recognizes that Noah possesses an enormous talent. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, the thugs are irritated because they have not been received yet. The bald leader cannot endure it any longer, and furiously shouts for them to stop ignoring him, calling Noah a bratty kid. His companions ask him to be quiet. Even so, the boss brags, saying that he could kill him if he wanted to. Noah does not intend to allow them to disrespect him, so from inside, he begins to intimidate him. Henry asks what that was, and Noah reveals that he merely released a bit of the sword's power to intimidate them. Henry is surprised to realize that his little brother has completely dominated the sword. After that, in the capital, Noah is received by Hido, who had sent him an invitation for that night, and upon entering the building, all those present applaud his arrival and speak wonders about Noah. Hido asks what Noah is carrying on his waist, and he reveals that it is Leviathan, a gift from the Crown Prince. Those present are left unable to believe it, realizing that he is carrying a national treasure, but one of them comments that perhaps it is just a toy. Noah cannot hear it clearly, but the man attempts to play the tough guy. However, Leviathan releases its power, causing terror in everyone present. Noah asks it to stop, and the sword dissipates its aura. He understands that Leviathan became irritated by those who insulted its master, and even though loyalty is a good thing, it certainly exaggerated a little. Hido praises him, commenting that he expected nothing less from the 13th prince. Everyone has just felt the power of a national treasure, and Noah controls this immense power. Quickly, the public begins to praise him, so Hido asks what they should do with that man. But Noah responds that they do not need to worry, since he no longer belongs in that place. After that, the party continues peacefully, and everyone shows respect to the prince, attempting to win his recognition. Among them, Byron Elaine introduces himself, the person responsible for managing the Elaine Guild, while also introducing his daughter, Cindy. Noah asks if the girl is adopted. Elaine is quite impressed and confirms it, while Noah comments that Elaine possesses the posture of someone born into nobility, something that Cindy does not possess. Furthermore, he also notices that she was adopted when she was still a slave. Elaine is left open-mouthed, seeing that Noah discovered this just by looking at her. But Noah knows the look of a slave perfectly well. Elaine kneels and confirms that the deduction is correct. He bought her as a slave, but since she is a very intelligent girl, he decided to adopt her, and now he is teaching her all kinds of things. Noah becomes quite excited, making it clear that he liked this. He comments that one day he will invite him to his house so that he can tell him more about Cindy. Elaine expresses his gratitude and then says goodbye, while Hido comments to Noah that that man knows the right time to withdraw, because if he had remained there investigating further, it would end up stirring up too much envy. But Noah confesses to Hido that there is another reason why he knew Cindy was not his biological daughter, and upon using the aura of Leviathan, the girl immediately enters a state of alert. Noah comments to Hido that, as he can see, since the first intimidation, the girl has been protecting Elaine, when it would be normal at her age for them to protect her. Hido notices this and comments that Noah's cleverness has left him impressed. The next day, while Noah is walking through the market, he ends up running into Oscar, the 8th prince. He asks his little brother what he is doing in that place, and Noah responds that he is just taking a walk. Oscar notices that Noah has free time, so he invites him to look for some treasure, and together they go to Cobalt Street, a place where all kinds of antiquities can be found, even though there are also many fakes. One of the hobbies of the nobles is to find a true treasure, so they spend some time looking for something valuable among the antiquities. However, they do not find anything. But before leaving, Noah buys a book. When Oscar takes a closer look, he is quite impressed, since that is a magic book by Andrea, the great legendary mage, and to top it off, it is the original. He warns Noah that it is a true treasure. The value depends greatly on the content, but it should not cost less than 1,000 renes. Oscar asks Noah how he found it, but Noah thinks that in reality, he did not even know what it was, but upon touching it, his wind magic received a bonus, so he bought it just because of that. At that moment, Leviathan begins to tremble. Noah draws the sword and points the magic book with it. Oscar becomes quite confused, asking what he intends to do, while Noah thinks that his power only receives bonuses from things that possess a will of their own, which means that inside that magic book, there is also a will of its own. Upon touching it with Leviathan, the magic book falls to the ground, releasing a malignant aura, and upon breaking a seal, it lets a black smoke escape. Oscar, frightened, wonders if that was a cursed grimoire, which imprisons the soul of the mage himself. He tells Noah to flee from there, because that is the vengeful spirit of the great mage who mastered the wind. However, Noah does not intend to back down, and uses the water power of Leviathan to attack the spectral figure, creating a powerful tower of water that dissipates the vengeful wind. Oscar is left in disbelief, realizing that at that age, his brother is already truly strong. Then Alan Barley, the owner of the antiquity shop on that street, appears before them. He addresses Noah, saying that he saw what he did, and possesses an object that he would like to show him. Noah asks if it is a treasure, and Barley responds that he would love for it to be that. Afterward, already inside the shop, Barley shows a legendary ring, which only reveals its true form before its legitimate owner. He comments that he has already shown the ring to many people, but until now, it has never reacted. Before, he thought that it was just a piece of scrap metal, which is why he threw it away countless times. But somehow, the ring always returned. For this reason, he feels that it must be something special. Oscar finds this interesting, and recommends that Noah try on the ring. Noah does so, and upon putting it on, the ring lights up, and begins to speak directly in his mind, recognizing him as its new owner, someone with an SSS rank rarity. The ring activates a protection, enveloping Noah in armor. Upon observing his statistics, he notices that they have not changed at all, but it is something very different from what happened with the magic book and Leviathan. So he informs Barley that he will keep the ring and will pay later. Oscar offers to pay for it, and wants Noah to consider it as a gift. He comments that Noah already possesses a magic sword and now also an armor, and confesses that he always knew he was different from his brothers. After that, the carriage leaves Noah together with Zoe. But when he is about to get off, Leviathan begins to tremble again, but Noah simply ignores it, saying goodbye to Oscar and thanking him for the day. But suddenly the bald man from before charges at Noah. Zoe attempts to protect him, but Noah pushes her aside, using his new acquisition to defend himself. Quickly, the guard lunges at the bald man. Oscar asks his brother what that was, and Noah reveals that he connected the ring with Leviathan, so it seems it acted as an automatic defense upon detecting hostility. Oscar responds that Noah already masters that in an exceptional manner. Sometime later, upon arriving at the theater, Noah notices that even though he got rid of the thugs, there are still men continuing to harass the girl, so he prepares to protect her, and the harassers run away. The person responsible for the theater quickly runs out to apologize to Noah, and he orders him never again to permit the entry of people of that type. However, the manager apologizes, saying that the establishment depends precisely on that type of customer, and that he needs to earn a living somehow. Noah understands the situation, so he decides to buy the place. The manager expresses his gratitude, deeply moved, and Alice approaches, commenting that she does not know how to thank him for everything he has done for her. Noah responds that she only needs to continue singing, as he simply wants to hear her songs, and he knows that she possesses a great talent, and hopes that one day even the king will listen to her. But until then she must keep improving. She expresses her gratitude, blushing, and prepares to sing another song. After that, while they are dressing Noah, they inform him that the governor of Oyo has come to visit him. Noah remembers that he is a very talented person, so he requests the girls to permit his entry immediately. Afterward, Marley, the governor of Oyo, pays his respects to the prince, since the inhabitants of each region must venerate their prince as their sole and legitimate lord. Noah asks to forget the formalities and requests him to sit down. Upon doing so, Marley comments that this is the second time they meet, since a year and a half ago he paid his respects when the emperor appointed him as governor. Noah asks how his territory is doing, since as far as he remembers, he had received the mission to manage the waters of Oyo. But upon seeing his reaction, Noah deduces that things are not going very well. Oyo is a grain-producing region, located on the bend of a large river, which is why it suffers from floods from time to time. The emperor chose Marley to solve this problem, but he comments to Noah that without the release of the budget, they will not be able to do anything. This leaves Noah in disbelief because releasing this budget was an imperial decree. Marley confirms it, but the problem is that the Minister of Finance continues to place obstacles. Without understanding that, Noah requests Marley to accompany him. After that, they meet with Maverick, the Minister of Finance, who asks Noah what brought him to his residence. Noah states that Marley informed him that the budget is being withheld and asks why he is doing this. Maverick responds that he has an important reason. But Noah, without much patience, responds that if he is going to say that Noah would not understand, then it is better to keep his mouth shut. Maverick becomes irritated but maintains his posture, and with a very forced smile, comments that he would never disrespect him. Then he explains that Oyo suffered major floods last year, which is why the emperor took pity on them and exempted them from paying taxes for an entire year. This means that they saved on taxes, and therefore the most logical thing would be to use those savings to solve the current problem. He asks if Noah understands now, but Noah responds by asking if he considers him an idiot. Noah comments that there were floods, and His Majesty exempted them from taxes because there simply were no taxes to collect, which represents a noble gesture. However, Maverick speaks as if the money actually existed, so Noah, very serious, wants to ask if he considers him an idiot. Marley is quite surprised seeing this attitude from the prince, since despite being very young, he possesses a strong personality, while Maverick stands up, apologizing, and comments that he does not want to be misunderstood. The truth is that at the moment he does not have the money. Noah asks the reason, and Maverick invents an excuse, asking if Noah is aware of the plan to build a new summer residence for the emperor. Noah says that he did not know about it, so Maverick explains that the emperor is already old and deserves to spend his summers in a cooler place than the capital. And even if it is just a summer residence, it will be used by the emperor, which is why all resources must be allocated to this project. Marley thinks that Maverick is using the emperor as an excuse, while the minister attempts to explain to Noah that for this reason he does not have sufficient funds, but Noah is no fool and commands him to shut up, because what he is saying is an affront to the emperor. Noah makes it clear that what is urgent is to control the water in the flooded region, but Maverick is denying money for this in order to build a palace. This is exactly what he is saying, so he asks if Maverick is trying to make His Majesty, his father, look like an unwise emperor. Maverick panics and quickly kneels, commenting that everything was nothing more than a misunderstanding. Noah responds seriously that in that case, either he releases the money or Noah will have to speak personally with the emperor. Maverick becomes desperate and orders his assistant to immediately arrange the funds for Oyo. Meanwhile, Marley cannot believe his own eyes. Noah managed to finish off the minister and does not even seem nervous, so Marley loses no time and praises him, saying that Noah possesses a great ability to negotiate and attack every flaw of his opponent. Therefore, he now feels ashamed for having turned to him merely because he carries the title of prince. Noah understands that Marley only wanted to use his title to impose authority, but after seeing what happened, he now shows him true admiration. Some time later, upon leaving the mansion, Maverick goes on his way and Noah is informed that the emperor wishes to see him immediately. After meeting with the emperor, his father requests him to leave the formalities aside and congratulates him on his excellent work, since he was told that he finished off Maverick. Noah asks how he found out so quickly if that had just happened, and his father explains that information is a weapon, and that he must get used to always keeping it sharp. Noah responds that he merely fulfilled his duty, but his father comments that this duty is not easy to fulfill at all. Furthermore, there are many flatterers and people who live off empty praise, but few manage to fulfill their duty in such a natural manner. Then, while touching his head, the emperor confesses that Noah is someone impressive. Even though he is only 6 years old, he asks Noah to stand up. and upon noticing that Leviathan has decreased considerably in size, he comments that he can see Noah dominates it completely, and now the best thing will be for Noah to learn how to wield that sword. For this reason, the Emperor called an instructor, so Damien Nobel appears, the master swordsman of the Empire and the best in the entire kingdom. He comments to Noah that from now on he will train him. However, at that moment, Damien stands up and asks the Emperor for permission to have a duel with Noah. The Emperor responds that Noah is just a child, but Damien explains that he does not need to worry, as he only wants to evaluate his potential, not his technique. The Emperor permits it, which makes Noah understand that if Damien managed to convince his father, then it is because he truly has confidence in himself. Damien requests that Noah attack him from wherever he wants, and upon holding Leviathan, the sword begins to react. When Noah attacks him, Damien blocks the strike, but Noah begins to receive the memories of the former owners of the sword. Quickly, he attacks Damien again, who praises him for doing an excellent job. However, at a certain moment, Noah manages to disarm him, and Damien understands that this was already to be expected from a sword that chooses its master. After all, if Noah now possesses its memories, it is because the former owners of Leviathan were formidable warriors. Damien quickly kneels before the Emperor and apologizes, but asserts that there is nothing he can teach Noah. He might even possess the strength and speed of a child, but he managed to disarm him using technique, which means that the prince already wields the sword like a true master, so it would be an insolence to attempt to teach him. The Emperor begins to laugh and comments to Noah that he had a great idea. He wants to entrust Noah with the selection of knights for that year. Damien responds that this is an excellent decision. While Noah accepts the responsibility and with pleasure, we soon discover that the selection of knights is a major event held once a year throughout the empire. And since that kingdom highly values armed warriors, they say that the way of the warrior was the only way to advance socially. For this reason, warriors from different regions fought to the death in the capital, and those who emerged victorious received the title of knight, becoming part of the upper class overnight. And the first mission of a knight is to serve their examiner. Therefore, if Noah can manage to have an exceptional knight become his subordinate, he will become much stronger. The Emperor asks Noah what kind of selection he intends to conduct, since he could choose between a free-for-all or a direct elimination. But Noah requests his father to eliminate the regional qualifiers and conduct everything directly in the capital, because he wishes to see the participants fight before him. The empire is enormous, and he cannot supervise everything that happens in the qualifiers, so it would be regrettable to lose an exceptional talent for some absurd reason. And Noah does not want to let any great talent escape. His father accepts, trusting in him. Upon returning to his territory, Noah asks Zoe if there is any aspirant in her village for the selection of knights. She responds that there is, since for people like them, that is the only way to rise in life. Then Noah reveals that he eliminated the regional qualifiers, which means that now they will be able to send as many candidates as they want from the village. However, he notices that Zoe has become a bit strange, so he asks her what she is seeing. She responds that it is nothing much, merely explaining that in her village they only send one candidate, because the journey and the stay in that place are very expensive, which is why the residents hold a selection to send only one person. And since the candidates carry the expectations of the entire village, they take this selection very seriously. Noah comments that he will also put an end to that, because he wants to have many candidates, and he does not intend to lose any talent because of something like that, which is why he himself will pay for the travel and lodging expenses. Zoe comments that this will cost a fortune, but Noah does not care at all and quickly sends for Dylan, ordering him to investigate how many empty houses exist in the capital, because he wants to buy all of them. It will be great if they are enough, but if they do not suffice, they will build a lodging, and since they will also need food, he orders him to get in touch with the merchants. After that, Noah meets with Elaine's guild, where he delivers the budget, which is very cheap. Noah comments that by doing things that way, Elaine will end up going bankrupt. But Elaine responds that if it is a request from the 13th prince, then there is no problem at all. However, Noah asks him to stop lying and asks what he desires in return, because no merchant would risk losing money. Elaine is quite surprised, since Noah is far too clever for his age. So he explains that alongside the selection of the palace knights, an examination to hire officials also takes place, and he would like to know what kind of candidates usually pass. Noah goes straight to the point and comments that Elaine therefore wants to infiltrate a woman into the palace. After all, if someone he trusts enters there, they will have rapid access to information. Furthermore, if the emperor took her as a mistress and she became his partner, the benefit would be incalculable. Elaine responds that all of this is independent of that agreement and comments that he has already sent a gift to Noah's residence. Noah smiles when he realizes that he even received an advance payment, which shows how clever Elaine is. Even so, he lets him know that he has a condition. He makes it clear that if the woman truly arouses his interest, he will be able to help her, but she must truly catch his attention. Elaine becomes emotional and expresses his gratitude. After that, he and his adoptive daughter kneel, making it clear that for them, there is no better ally than Noah. Therefore, if he permits, he would like to include his house's crest in the family business. Noah responds that this means Elaine is placing himself under his orders, and Elaine confirms it. Noah accepts, but warns that he will not tolerate betrayals. While returning home, Noah thinks that he gained a new advantage by having Elaine as a subordinate. However, suddenly it begins to rain, and he notices that in his statistics, his water affinity dropped from rank SS to rank S, which leaves him quite worried, since something probably happened in his domains. So he informs Zoe that he needs to find the emperor, and she informs the coachman of this. After that, upon arriving at the palace, his father asks how Noah knows that something is happening in Almeria. By his attitude, Noah deduces that the emperor already knew, and asks if this is true. But his father responds that he did not know for certain. He had merely noticed a few signs. At that moment, the emperor's informant whispers something in his ear, and after he withdraws, the emperor tells Noah that a revolt has erupted in Almeria, and asks if he has any idea of the scale of the problem. Upon seeing his statistics, Noah assumes that it must be a small-scale revolt, and his father confirms this, revealing that the reports speak of approximately 5,000 people. Then he asks if Noah would like to personally suppress the rebellion. But Noah responds that unfortunately this is impossible, because he is still a child and has no experience on the battlefield, which could make the soldiers disobey his orders. And if the intention is to send a prince, any of his brothers would be more suitable. The emperor is surprised by his way of thinking, since Noah made a decision by analyzing everything in an objective manner, so he asks which of his brothers he would like to send. And Noah responds that the most suitable one is Henry, because due to the scale of the revolt, the most logical thing would be to carry out a frontal assault, and Henry is the most cautious among all of them. His father congratulates him on his choice and sends for Henry. After that, inside a carriage, Henry asks if Noah really intends to let this opportunity pass, because that is a country of warriors and accumulating military merits would open many doors for him. However, Noah responds that everything happened very suddenly, and he is not prepared yet, and even if he survived, it is very likely that his soldiers would die in vain. Suddenly, Leviathan activates upon sensing that something is approaching, so Noah warns them quickly. Realizing that he is the target, Noah steps out of the carriage so as not to involve his brother, but right at the moment he steps out, he is attacked. But he manages to block the strikes easily, and understands that since they are using water magic, this means they are the rebels from Almeria. The rebels charge at Noah, who blocks everything peacefully and defeats them without mercy, while Henry comments that it only took spending a few days without seeing him for Noah to become even stronger. But he regrets that Noah killed them, because they could have obtained good information. But Noah reveals that he did not kill them. He merely knocked them down and left them unconscious using Leviathan's intimidation, because people of that type normally prefer to take their own lives rather than yield information. He requests Henry to take custody of them, and comments that from what he had heard, the soldiers of the revolt were mounted knights. But in Almeria there are almost no military horses, which leaves him quite thoughtful. The next day, already at his residence, Noah meets with Elaine and asks if he trades near Almeria. Elaine confirms this, and Noah warns that if any information about that leaks from there, he can consider himself a dead man. Then reveals that there was a rebellion in Almeria, and that apparently the main force of the rebels is composed of mounted soldiers. Elaine is quite impressed while Noah continues explaining that he possesses 10,000 renes and wants Elaine to go buy all the horse hay he can find. Elaine asks about the food for the soldiers, but Noah tells him to forget about that, because Almeria does not possess an equine industry. According to Henry, the rebels probably bought all the horses abroad, and stealing hay from the villagers has its limits. Elaine understands immediately what Noah means, since if they bought food for the soldiers, it would end up causing looting. He recognizes that Noah is brilliant and leaves to fulfill his task quickly. Meanwhile, Noah thinks that now that he has resolved this issue, his brother's battle will become a bit easier. After that, Noah meets with his father, and the Emperor informs him that the captured rebels plan to kidnap him to use him as a bargaining chip. However, Noah responds to his father that they confessed far too easily, so it is very likely that they are lying. His father praises him, saying that he is quite clever, but asks him not to worry because they possess excellent methods to discover if the rebels told the truth. Noah decides to trust his father, because even though he is very intelligent, he does not understand much about these interrogations. At that, the Emperor becomes pleased with him, as he was impressed that he noticed the issue of the horse forage. Noah is quite surprised, since that order was not given long ago. So the information network that his father manages is on another level. The Emperor reveals that his brother had proposed to let the rebels starve. However, he foresaw that they would loot the villagers, so he nearly cut off the food for the horses and did everything using his own money. Furthermore, his plan of action was immediate, which is why he finds himself impressed by the great talent of his youngest son. Noah expresses his gratitude, and the Emperor lets him know that he will give him a great reward, announcing that he authorizes him to add a sword to his coat of arms. Noah is quite impressed, since in a country of warriors, adding a sword to the emblem of one's shield without the Emperor's permission is an offense that can be punished by death, and the highest honor the Emperor can bestow is to authorize this permission. After that, returning to his land, Noah meets with Elaine, where he reveals that it was not difficult to monopolize the forage. And furthermore, he also knows the delivery routes. And as if that were not enough, he also has information about Kafun, the leader of the rebels. He mentions that he is a very rancorous man and capable of doing whatever is necessary to achieve his objective, which is why he recommends that they be careful. But he knows he does not even need to ask for that. At that moment, they are interrupted by Evelyn, who informs them that there is a severely wounded individual at the entrance saying he has urgent information. Noah meets with him, and the knight introduces himself as a captain of the squadron from the Adora district. He informs him that there was a revolt in Almeria. His superior took a lot of weapons, but he could not support him and left to warn them. Elaine observes him and regrets it, since despite having taken all that risk, Noah was already informed of everything. Even so, Noah orders Evelyn to treat his wounds, and to give him 1,000 renes as a reward. Elaine is surprised, asking why he did all that, since supposedly the information that the captain brought is of no use. Noah responds that this might even be true, but a simple captain risked his life to come warn him, and he must reward that loyalty. After that, Zoe is a bit worried and meets with Noah. He asks what is happening, and Zoe, a bit agitated, hands him a bag with 500 renes, in addition to a potion, revealing that the unknown individual told her that he would give her that as a reward, only if she managed to make her lord take it. Noah realizes that the rebels are willing to do anything to get him at any cost. Zoe comments that it is a sleeping potion, and Noah asks why she brought it there. She wants him to know that she would never betray him, the one who saved her village, her mother, and her. However, that stranger said he would kill her if she did not do it, but despite the threats, she remains unable to betray him. Noah understands, so he writes a check adding a 0 to her reward. He lets her know that since she refused to do that job, he is now rewarding her. Zoe responds that she cannot accept that amount, but Noah asks her to keep the money. Furthermore, he needs her to do a small job for him. She responds that she will do whatever is necessary, and Noah reveals that he is going to take that substance, and as soon as he becomes unconscious, she must hand him over. And after that, she must flee and hide, because they will most likely attempt to silence her. Even though she is a bit frightened, Zoe accepts his instructions. After that, we see how Noah awakens and overhears his kidnappers wanting to stab him with a strange sword. But they have not done so yet because they are following Kafun's orders. He pulls Leviathan from his sleeve, and since they did not remove his ring, he manages to free himself easily. He notices that he is in the back of a carriage, so he continues to pretend to be asleep to go unnoticed, and takes the opportunity to order Leviathan to show its memories, allowing Noah to observe what happened after he fainted. Upon understanding that those individuals are nothing more than pawns, he decides to get rid of them. He regrets it, since he hoped to obtain some useful information. The rebels prepare to attack him, but Noah gets rid of them with great ease, and after defeating everyone, Zoe appears precisely with the group of knights. Noah asks what she is doing, and she responds that even though he had ordered her to flee, she became very worried and sought knights to rescue him. But she did not expect him to defeat everyone on his own. The knights are left in disbelief, and at that, Noah asks who is in command there. Then the captain introduces himself, and Noah orders them to take care of the bodies, since they are accomplices of those who attacked him a few days ago. They begin to take action, but upon moving a body, a strange sword falls, and when they were about to touch it, Noah stops them, asking them to step back, understanding that it was the sword the kidnappers were talking about. He can feel it emanating a strong bloodlust, and perceives the curse it possesses through Leviathan. He can feel the rancor of the one who forged it, and asks Leviathan if it can perchance do that, then requests it to show him what it is capable of. Leviathan activates its power and follows the trail of rancor of the person who forged that sword, and by firing a powerful laser beam, it cuts through the skies and goes directly to Kafun, thus ending his life. The next day, Noah meets with his father, who congratulates him, mentioning that the leader of the rebels died during the night, pierced by a column of water that emerged out of nowhere, so it is more than evident that it was him. Noah is no longer surprised that his father discovers everything so quickly, and he recalls that he used the sword's rancor as a signal, and aimed at its owner with a long-distance shot from Leviathan. And now that the rebellion has lost its leader, it was quickly suppressed by Henry, and after capturing almost all the perpetrators of the revolt, they meet with the emperor to request his verdict on what to do with them. The room remains in silence until the emperor decrees that they must prepare oxen and horses, because they are going to make mincemeat out of their entire clan. The people present state that it is a magnificent idea, while the emperor mentions to Noah that they will pay for the crime of having rebelled in his territory. However, Noah intervenes and warns his father that he must not do that. The emperor and everyone in the room are left in disbelief hearing this, and his father asks for an explanation. Noah responds that the punishment must follow the law, and the law dictates the death penalty for the leader and hanging for relatives and accomplices, while the others will be decapitated according to their degree of involvement. Therefore, making mincemeat is a common expression, but it is not contained in the imperial law. His father comments that those people tarnished his honor, but Noah makes it clear that if the emperor, his own father, violates the law, public order will collapse, so he requests that he reconsider his decision. Everyone in the court becomes very nervous, but the emperor smiles and agrees with his son, thanking him for having corrected his mistake. Everyone is quite shocked. However, the emperor mentions to Noah that a light punishment will not leave him satisfied, so the maximum penalty permitted by law will be applied, without the possibility of reduction, and asks if he agrees, to which Noah responds that he has no objection. The emperor addresses the prime minister named Noise and Chancellor Rio, making it clear that he will be in charge of everything, while the rest of those present remain surprised, seeing how Noah dared to correct the emperor without even flinching. At that, the emperor stands up, informing him that thanks to him, his name will not be tarnished in history, so once again he must reward him, and the best way to do this is by granting him a title. Any of his sons could have advised him, and so that everyone knows his wisdom, he grants him the title of Wise, and his title changes from 13th Prince to Wise Prince. Noah thanks his father, who let slip that if he had been born a few years earlier, but we cannot hear the rest. After that, everyone present begins to shout "Long live the Wise Prince," but Maverick remains in silence. The emperor comments that very soon the selection will begin, and asks if he has already decided how he will choose the participants. Noah says that he has an idea, and after that, they meet in the courtyard. Noah is surrounded by his father's intelligence agents, who attack him with buckets of water. He blocks everyone peacefully, leaving the emperor quite impressed, and after stepping out completely dry, he reveals to his father that his plan for the selection of knights is to decide the selected ones according to whoever manages to pressure him the most. His father finds the idea quite interesting. However, he makes it clear that this involves a risk, because if someone strong appears and manages to break through his defense, the situation could get a bit complicated. But the determined Noah comments to his father that he is prepared for that, and the emperor smiles, saying that those words are worthy of his son, the Wise Prince. After that, at dusk, the emperor finds himself gathered with Noise and Chancellor Rio, who comments that telling Noah that he wished he had been born a bit earlier might have been an imprudent comment to make in public. However, the emperor merely laughs because Noah, besides advising him, also defeated the enemy leader without even stepping onto the battlefield, something the likes of which he had never seen. But above all, that magic sword that Noah possesses carries a very strong power. So he asks Cruz, one of his subordinates, to bring him that object, since according to the legend, one must never break the seal of the true Leviathan. But when it comes to Noah, perhaps it is possible that he will manage to control it. After that, all the warriors of the selection prepare themselves for the selection event. This is the most important event of the Empire of Warriors, since military power is the only way to ascend by one's own merit. And thanks to this event, someone can change their destiny. Normally, the examination attracts many citizens, but that year it was something special, because one of the princes, Noah, was the examiner, something that had never happened before, and the citizens packed the entire place, just to see Noah even if only for an instant, and he is very calm drinking his tea, blocking with great ease the attacks of all the aspiring knights. The people are left impressed seeing the majesty of the wise prince, while on the other hand, they inform the emperor that this year the people seem very excited. However, he comments that what matters is the result, because this event serves to find great talents, and he knows that Noah will be able to find them. At that point, we see the mage attacking with a huge blast of fire, but Noah is not even flinched. He protects himself easily with his water bubble, while he regrets because it is already getting dark and no one of matching caliber has appeared yet. But precisely at that moment, the last candidate of that day emerges, who, after taking a very deep breath, charges at Noah. He manages to block her attack. However, the girl manages to penetrate his defense and land a strike on him, but she becomes frightened, realizing that she injured Noah. The soldiers quickly lunge at her, while the girl panics, since she did not want to cause all that trouble. At that moment, Noah orders the soldiers to release her and asks the girl to introduce herself. She introduces herself as Shirley Graham. When she does so, he informs her that she passed the examination. Shirley cannot believe it, since despite having injured him, the prince is passing her. The public also cannot believe it. However, Noah makes it clear that it is more than obvious that the girl passed. After that, he congratulates her, admiring her armor. Shirley responds that it is an armor passed down from generation to generation in her family, but she asks how she passed and why they are not going to punish her, since even if it was an accident, she injured the prince, and that is an offense. However, Noah makes it clear that this offense does not exist, because it was he who ordered her to attack him. He asks her to stand up and try to strike him again. Shirley hesitates, but Noah reminds her that she is a knight and must follow orders. Shirley stands up and quickly charges at him, but Noah blocks very easily. This time, his shield does not break. She understands nothing of what happened, and Noah makes it clear that if he wanted to defend himself, she would have never hit him. She did not injure him by accident, and the duty of a knight is to obey orders. He was testing her loyalty, because someone who is afraid of his status is of no use to him. Shirley is quite impressed, understanding the great determination that Noah possesses, so she does not hesitate and swears eternal loyalty to him. Noah observes his statistics and notices that Shirley was the one who increased his parameters the most so far, which means she is very strong. After that, the doctor arrives to heal Noah's injuries, who comments that they are exaggerating for having sent him. After a while, Shirley observes how they are treating his wounds. Noah asks what is happening, and she makes it clear that she is just surprised seeing how they are healing his wounds, since the method of medicine in the villages is very different, because there they only pray and purify the origin of the evil. The doctor comments to Noah that this is something very common in poor villages, so Noah has an idea. Before someone becomes a doctor, first they need to be an apprentice, which is why he orders Shirley her first mission, which is to look for the most intelligent and hardworking children in her village, and after that, bring them there so they can learn to be doctors. And furthermore, he also asks Grobby, the doctor, to accept them as apprentices. He accepts, while Noah makes it clear that he will cover all expenses, causing Shirley to kneel and express her gratitude for everything. However, Noah is very serious and responds that a knight does not bow down, which is why from now on she will have to study etiquette. The next morning, Shirley stands up and prepares for her day. While on those stairs she ends up running into Zoe. They greet each other and continue walking together. But then they find the rest of the maids, who are whispering about whom Lord Noah might marry. Shirley comments that he is barely 6 years old. However, they make it clear that she is very naive, because the other princes married even before reaching the age of majority, which means they married before the age of 15. Zoe finds that to be a lack of respect, but at that moment one of the maids comments that this only demonstrates how popular he is, since lately they have not stopped opening cafes on the streets in front of the mansion, and many girls go there just hoping to see him and try to make Noah notice them. Rihanna comments that Evelyn always says that there is no prince gentler than Noah, and knows perfectly well that Zoe also likes him. She becomes nervous and attempts to deny it, but Rihanna asks her not to lie, since she knows perfectly well that she began to study magic precisely to be more useful to him. Nervously, she responds that she only does it to be useful, since her happiness lies merely in serving him, and quickly leaves the place. After that, in his office, they inform Noah of the results of the selection, and make it clear that thanks to the method he implemented that year, the rookies possess a very high level. So is the Order of Knights grateful to him? Noah responds by asking them to inform the Order that he is also grateful for the logistics, and then asks Shirley to accompany him to the entrance. The female knight is surprised to hear him, and when they arrive outside, Shirley kneels and expresses her gratitude for him having taken the trouble to go there. He smiles and asks her not to be so formal. After all, they are companions in arms. Furthermore, seeing how Shirley behaves, he understands that the prince asked her to accompany him precisely for her to learn from him, since he possesses more experience, and gives her a small piece of advice, making it clear that she will not regret it if she is faithful to the prince. After that, during the night, Noah prepares for a party to reward his staff. Elaine and his daughter express their gratitude for the invitation. Noah asks them to go enjoy themselves, making it clear that all the merchants in that place possess ties with him, which means that they must maintain a good relationship with all of them. However, at that moment, Zoe brings a letter, and a bit nervously comments that she did not know if she should deliver it because it could be dangerous, but that letter is addressed to him, and according to the guard who received it, the messenger fled the scene immediately afterward. Noah opens the letter and notices how Leviathan reacts. Upon seeing the content of the letter, he understands that the remaining rebels in Almeria are plotting something, but he does not know exactly what, because whoever sent that letter infiltrated to investigate. Noah realizes quickly that it is the soldier from that occasion. Zoe recalls that that man seemed to admire him greatly, and now he is doing all of that to return the favor that Noah did for him that time. However, Noah comments to the girls that this is very bad, because pretending to be a spy without training is dangerous, and if he is discovered, he will be killed immediately, and since his brother is still around those regions, he decides to send a letter. After a period of waiting, Noah receives a message informing him that, unfortunately, they discovered the spy and tortured him. He could have confessed, but since he did not do so, they tortured him in a horrible manner. Fortunately, his brother's unit managed to rescue him, but he remains unconscious. Noah becomes thoughtful and feels guilty, since if he had discovered it sooner, he could have prevented that, and he feels he must apply a teaching he learned from his father. That information is a weapon. Therefore, he orders Zoe to get in touch with Almeria, since he does not intend to let that man die, and he will not spare any expenses to save his life. Zoe steps into action while Noah thinks that sacrificing someone loyal for a simple piece of information is not worth it. After that, Noah and Shirley go to the city in search of a gift for Henry, for the assistance he provided regarding the letter. Upon arriving at the shop, the merchant shows the highest quality merchandise, and Shirley is marveled because she had never seen that type of thing before. On the other hand, Noah notices that something was being kept hidden, and asks about it since it exudes a different aura. The merchant is surprised, commenting that he already expected someone like him to notice. So upon removing the cover, he reveals a beautiful glass statue, a unique piece created by the legendary master Lindad, who manufactured it using a lost technique, and they say only 2 statues like that one remain. Noah takes a look and then asks if 10,000 is enough. The seller accepts, delighted, and Noah gives a bit more as a reward for having shown something so valuable. But at that moment, Oscar enters the room, since he noticed that Noah was there. However, upon seeing the statue, he is quite impressed, recognizing that it is a work of Lindad. The seller confirms this to them, and Oscar comments that the appearance of the second of the 2 existing statues is a problem. Noah asks if by any chance they know where the other statue is, and Oscar reveals that it is in his possession. Upon hearing this, Noah takes the statue and without hesitation destroys it, leaving everyone completely shocked. He delivers the payment to the seller, and even adds an extra amount for the trouble, besides requesting that he spread the news that the second statue was found, but it broke. Oscar understands Noah's gesture, since now with this, the price of his sculpture will skyrocket. Noah confirms this and makes it clear that treasures belong to whoever arrives first. Even though he feels sorry for the sculptor, he contents himself with the fact that the value of his brother's statue will increase. After all, it is not the same thing to possess a unique piece as opposed to one of only two in existence. Oscar becomes very happy, and before saying goodbye, he makes it clear to Noah that he owes him one. Meanwhile, Noah now decides to look for another gift. Sometime later, while they are walking through the streets, Noah asks Shirley what she is thinking, and she responds that since she began serving him, she does not stop being more impressed. Even though she can understand a bit of his reasoning, destroying a sculpture like that is something impressive. Noah responds that that is nothing more than a simple object, because the true treasures are those people who risk their lives to bring him valuable information, or those who strive tirelessly not to disappoint his trust, or even those who swear loyalty and give their best to help him, making it explicit that the true treasures are people. Shirley becomes very emotional hearing this, realizing how Noah makes it clear that she is also a treasure. She understands that she has learned a lot from him during these days. Shirley observes him marveled, because looking at Noah is like seeing a great king, so she asserts that she will follow him for the rest of her life, while he thinks that he wishes to conquer even more treasures when he becomes an adult. After 6 years, we see Noah preparing to travel, and all his employees say goodbye to him with bows. However, sometime later, Noah finds himself peacefully in his territory, but notices that one of his maids named Iggy is a bit restless. He asks what is happening, and Iggy tells him that they have been receiving gifts for 3 days straight, something that seems quite exaggerated to her. Zoe responds that this is normal and also comments that last time it took an entire week, explaining that it is necessary to register in detail all the people who send gifts, and this consumes a lot of time. But Evelyn manages to handle all of that very well. Now Noah, at 12 years old, thanks to all the deeds he achieved, has been appointed by his father to the Ministry of Military Affairs, and the person responsible for the military forces is his brother Henry. Noah meets with him, and Henry makes it clear that he needs his opinion, mentioning that his father decreed that Prince Rise would lead an army to crush the rebellion on the southern border, since the men of that region are taking advantage of diplomacy. So his father wants to send an army to show who is in charge. Noah understands this, since Rise is a very formidable warrior, who splendidly masters military strategies and is undoubtedly the most brilliant knight among those serving his brother Henry. But Noah directly asks Rise how many soldiers he possesses, a question that for some reason surprises Rise. Noah asks what is wrong, given that he is merely asking about the number of troops he controls. Rise does not know how to respond, and Henry, a bit confused, asks his brother what he is implying by questioning the number of the troops. At that moment Henry stands up and asks Rise what he is hiding. Nervous, he quickly kneels down and begs for forgiveness, but Noah reassures his brother, saying that the budget the Ministry of Finance allocates to the army is strictly based on the number of troops, so it is very common to register merchants or simple laborers as soldiers, in order to secure a larger budget this way and keep the surplus. Henry becomes very irritated with Rise, since he is stealing money. But Noah asks him to calm down and remarks to Rise that the duty of a general is to increase the number of troops. His intention is not to blame him. Normally there would be no issues, as the official number of troops serves as a method of deterrence. Henry understands what his brother means, since sometimes it is more convenient to claim to possess more than 1,000 men. Henry praises him, saying he expected nothing less from his little brother. However, Noah makes it clear that this time is different, because the Emperor ordered to exterminate all the men, which is why he asked Rise for the actual number of troops. Rise responds that he possesses around 2,000 men, and Noah orders him to take charge of bringing exactly that number, then writes a letter, instructing him to take it to the Ministry of Finance, since he intends to request more money for another 2,000 men, as unforeseen expenses, and that money will be for him to keep. He asks Rise to keep the money, but in exchange he does not intend to tolerate any defeat. Rise becomes frightened seeing the imposing presence of Noah, and accepts to fulfill all his orders. Meanwhile, Henry remarks to his little brother that he knows how to command very well. After that, while they are leaving, Henry asks if Noah has still never stepped onto a battlefield. Noah confirms this, thinking that despite being 12 years old, he remains at level 1. However, this is due to the regulations of the imperial family, since many of the children of the imperial family died very early. Officially they say it is due to illnesses, but they suspect that they are actually poisoned because of the power struggles. Regardless, the life of an heir is sacred, and without an imperial order the princes cannot go to war until they grow up. Henry comments that going to the battlefield would serve him as experience. However, Noah responds that he cannot do that until his father gives him authorization. Suddenly, while they are advancing, some children come running out of an alley, causing the horses to stop. They scream for help, and from the alley several human traffickers emerge. Noah steps down from his carriage, asking where their registration is, because operating slave trade without authorization is an extremely grave crime. The traffickers rush towards him, but Noah finishes them off effortlessly. Henry congratulates him on the excellent work, while Noah approaches the children and asks if they are all right. One of them, who ran first, begins to cry, and tells Noah that those men said they would sell them for a fortune. However, at that moment, from the alley appears a very strange old man who knows perfectly well who Noah is. He greets him politely, making it clear that he earns his living trading young people like those. The man is about to introduce himself, but then stops and remarks that perhaps it is better not to say his name, because he is one of the men in service to Gilbert, the first prince. Noah understands that practically that man is telling him not to interfere by using the name of his brother as a shield. The old man does not wish to cause any commotion, so he recommends that Noah pretend he saw nothing. However, Noah asks his brother if he knows that subject, and Henry responds that he does not. And since two princes do not recognize him, then there is nothing he can do. However, the old man begins to speak. Before he can say anything, Noah uses his power and leaves him unconscious without even moving. Right after, he announces before everyone that it is unbelievable that those men pretended to be subordinates of the first prince. Even if they can deceive whomever they want, they will not do the same to his brother and him. Some citizens quickly notice that it is the wise prince, the benefactor of the singer Alachi. Then Noah asks the guards to arrest those subjects and take them to the mansion of the first prince, since they were publicly tarnishing the name of his brother. And as for the children, he orders that they be taken home for the time being. Henry congratulates Noah, since he resolved everything in a brilliant manner. And as they continue moving forward, Noah remarks that if those subjects truly worked for Gilbert, they could not simply eliminate them just like that. However, if they did nothing, it would confirm that Gilbert is involved in human trafficking. Therefore, by treating them as imposters, they forced Gilbert to deal with them personally. Henry becomes impressed seeing the intelligence of his brother. During the night, while Noah eats a huge steak, the butler quickly hands him information. Henry asks what happened, and Noah reveals that he received a message from the first prince thanking him for the capture of those men. They had already been interrogated and were conducting business falsely using the name of the crown prince. Gilbert intended to hand them over to justice, but in a supposed moment of carelessness, they committed suicide. Noah tells Henry that, without a doubt, Gilbert is behind that slave trafficking network, and Henry realizes this, commenting that for a long time he has been obsessed with buying shops and properties just out of pure vanity. However, Noah states that Gilbert was forced to act that way because, even though he is the eldest son, he is the child of a concubine, which means he can never become emperor. And perhaps he is trying to alleviate his frustration or seek something to replace the power he can never inherit. Henry cannot believe that his little brother can see through all of this at such a young age. He comments that it was a disgusting matter, but thanks to Noah, he managed to feel a little better. Now, sometime later, Noah makes it clear to the children that, from that moment on, no one else will be able to sell them, and now they are free to leave if they wish. But since the children look pensive, Noah understands that they have nowhere to return to. One girl was sold to pay for the rice harvest, another to fund her own mother's funeral, and thus each one possessed a different situation. Noah understands that, with parents like that, they would definitely sell them again. So, he makes it clear to Dylan that he will be responsible for them and asks him to provide housing and work, as well as education for those who want to study. One of the girls asks if he intends to buy them, but Noah says he will not do that, because if they ever want to leave, they will be able to do so the moment they want to. However, he also makes it clear that the only thing he will never forgive is betrayal. The children do not know how to respond. After all, they are still small, so Dylan advises that they only need to be grateful and serve him with all their heart. The little ones quickly express their gratitude. On the following day, Evelyn meets with Noah, and when she tries to hand over her report, Noah interrupts her, asking her to spare the details. Next, he hands an envelope to her, informing her that it is her appointment because, from now on, she will govern a small region of Armelia. Evelyn is surprised, since now she will be a governor, and Noah makes it clear that, with this, she will become an official civil servant of full right. The position of governor is a position of great responsibility. For a simple maid, that represents a massive rise. However, since the lands granted by the emperor to his princes are immense, it would be impossible to manage them alone. Because of this, the princes appoint governors to manage the lands in their name. Noah tells Evelyn that he has observed her for many years and that she is the most intelligent and capable among the maids, and he feels it would be a waste for her to continue merely taking care of the guests. Evelyn responds that she prefers to serve him directly, instead of leaving to secure a promotion. Noah understands that, but also recognizes that she possesses enormous potential, and if she performs well in the position of governor, it will mean that he possesses a great eye for recognizing talent. So, he asks her to go out into the outside world and continue working for him. Looking at it this way, Evelyn accepts satisfied, and upon leaving the room, Shirley is surprised, commenting that compared to the first prince, Noah treats people in a completely different manner. But Noah interrupts her, saying that there are things that it is better not to say out loud. She understands and apologizes, and when Noah leaves the room, Shirley continues thinking that he is someone incredible. Some time later, Noah meets with his father, who already knows perfectly well that Noah took care of Gilbert. Noah responds that everything was nothing more than a coincidence, since he merely arrested those who violated the law, and he thinks that Gilbert was quite clever to tell everything to the emperor, because that way it makes him look like he has nothing to be ashamed of. The emperor comments that those people are insolent and asks his son what the punishment is for illegal slave trade. Noah responds that, for the leader, the penalty is the amputation of the dominant arm, and, for the others, mandatory military service. The prime minister confirms these punishments. His father comments that if it were him in disguise and he had hesitated to reveal his identity, they would have given him a beating. The prime minister comments that if that had happened, they would have received capital punishment. However, Noah interrupts them, warning that this is not true, because according to the law, if someone does not know the true identity of His Majesty and His Majesty does not identify himself while he is in disguise, then the crime of lèse majesté does not apply, which would turn the case into a simple offense of common assault. Everyone present is left unable to believe the comment of Noah, who wonders if perhaps he went over the line, even though he felt that the correct thing was to tell the truth. But at the same time, he thinks that making the prime minister feel embarrassed is not right either. So, he begins to think if he should apologize. But the emperor begins to laugh and tells the prime minister that he won the bet. Noah is confused and his father comments that he had only made a bet with the prime minister because he wanted to see if Noah would be capable of defending the law regardless of who was before him. Noah understands that they were putting him to the test, but he does not understand exactly for what. Then, the emperor makes it clear that he already knew that he is extremely strict when the matter is the law. He only wanted to confirm this and, from that moment on, appoints Noah as the Minister of Justice. The people present go wild and begin to shout the name of Noah, the Minister of Justice. Sometime later, Noah goes to listen to his beloved Alachi sing, while he thinks that he only responded as always, and now he was appointed Minister of Justice. He wonders if that is just his impression or if there is something more behind that decision. However, now that he is listening to the beautiful melody of Alachi, he feels that it is not the time to think about that. On the other hand, Zoe is sad over the departure of Evelyn, while Shirley trains intensely to protect her lord and Dylan is taking care of the children. As for Gilbert, he seems quite irritated, and Albert appears to be enjoying himself. Meanwhile, in the royal castle, they inform the emperor that the information was correct. After that, he asks the prime minister to take care of that, and he seriously comments that the time is up. Sometime later, Noah presents himself at the headquarters of the Ministry of Justice to begin performing his new job. There he meets Ozzy, the vice minister, and who, from that moment on, will become his right hand. Ozzy is surprised by the fact that Noah has reached that position being extremely young. Noah assumes that he is quite talented, so he asks for a summary of the things he should take into consideration. Then Ozzy explains that they are responsible for two main matters. They must coordinate the courts across the entire empire and prosecute the crimes that happen in the capital. Furthermore, as a rebellion occurred 6 years ago, they also possess the responsibility to judge crimes of high treason. So they also function as a court, and Ozzy himself has already needed to act as a juror on several occasions. Noah goes straight to the point. He asks how many bribes they receive in a regular week. This makes Ozzy nervous, and he quickly clarifies that he is not corrupt. Noah asks him not to worry, since he is not asking with the intention to punish him. but rather to understand the actual situation of that place. With that reassurance, Ozzy relaxes a bit and tells everything, making it clear that he is one of those who least accepts bribes because he possesses certain principles, such as never accepting money in cases of homicide. In fact, he only accepts bribes when the sentence could go in either direction, that is to say, in more uncertain cases. So he earns only a few hundred rines extra per year. With that in mind, Noah begins to act and promises to pay him 5,000 rines per year. That is, 10 times more, in case he swears never to accept any bribe again. As long as he is there, the laws will be followed to the letter, because the only thing he desires from Ozzy is that he helps him live up to the expectations of the Emperor. His determination impresses Ozzy, who refuses to receive that raise. Therefore, he makes it clear that Noah does not need to give him extra money for him to fulfill his job and promises to obey all of his orders. Noah comments that, in any other situation, he would think that he is plotting something. But since he can see his statistics, he knows that he is telling the truth. Later, Oscar invites him to dinner in celebration, because after Henry, he is the second prince appointed minister in the 50 years that the current emperor has been on the throne. However, Noah comments that it is curious that the emperor has appointed 2 princes in a row, so he feels that there must be some mysterious reason behind this. In the case of his brother, the appointment makes sense due to him having suppressed the rebellion, but his own seems more like favoritism. Not that Noah has not done anything relevant. After all, he is a very special prodigy. However, his deeds do not compare to those of his brother Henry, so he asks Oscar if he knows the story of when the empire was close to falling. Oscar tells that happened because of the direct succession system that existed at that time. As the successor of the emperor was decided at the moment of birth, the rest of the princes spent their lives doing nothing, in debauchery, which caused the administration of the empire to enter into decline. In the end, the empire learned from its own mistakes, and because of this, now each prince receives lands so that everyone learns equally to manage them. The detail is that appointing some of them as ministers, while the others continue merely managing territories, seems to go beyond simple political education. At that moment, Oscar understands everything that this implies, because apparently the actions of the emperor indicate that he intends to replace the crown prince, and in fact, at that instant, one of his trusted men informs him that the emperor decided to appoint him Minister of Finance, so everything indicates that the plan is to put them to the test in even more important positions. Even so, Noah cannot help but wonder what will happen to Albert. Along with this, we see a massive group of imperial soldiers arriving to arrest several people. Even if at first no one understands what is happening, later it is discovered that that was a direct order from the emperor himself, since his right hand arrives to inform him that they arrested 167 people, including a certain Kix. It turns out that these people were planning to remove him from the throne and make the crown prince assume total control of the empire. However, the Prime Minister makes it clear that they do not possess concrete evidence that Albert was involved, so it is still too early to act against him. With this in mind, the Emperor orders the execution of Kix and of everyone involved, with the exception of the prince, to thus close the case and quickly begin to think about what to do next. Since with Gilbert and Albert doing these idiotic things every 5 minutes, it is obvious that neither of the two is worthy of becoming emperor. This makes him wonder which of his children truly possesses the capacity to become the successor. Which of them has what it takes to overcome the tests that he intends to impose. Meanwhile, Noah does not take long to discover the attempted rebellion and, on the following day, receives the names of everyone involved, who belong to the group of Albert. That is to say, even without direct evidence existing against Albert, the entire environment around him points to a rebellion. And if he did not report anything, he becomes an accomplice. And as Noah is the new Minister of Justice, he needs to take care of this case personally. The problem is that, while members of the royalty can commit practically any crime because their penalties end up reduced, treason is an exception. And if it is proven that someone from the royal family is involved, must they be condemned to be chopped into pieces? If that happens, the situation is going to get very grave. Because with the news that the Crown Prince is forming a rebellion, the reputation of the Emperor will be stained in history, and the entire kingdom will plunge into chaos. Because of this, Noah meets with his father and informs him that he has already decided the sentence of the treason case, revealing that all those detained will be condemned. This makes the king understand that Noah does not intend to involve his brother Albert, something that he himself also desired, since that would stain his reputation. Noah also explains that the best thing is to execute all the culprits, because that way there is no risk of any of them talking too much and ending up revealing the treason of the prince. Obviously Noah does not do this for his brother, but rather to prevent the reputation of the emperor from being stained. His father smiles upon realizing that Noah did exactly what was necessary. He is going to bury the matter, so he comments that he continues to expect great things from him. Unfortunately, the problems are only beginning, because some time later, when they arrive at the headquarters of the Ministry of Justice, Noah finds his guards fallen on the ground on the verge of death. One of them warns him that they are being attacked by invaders, and, as if that were not enough, they still continue inside. Before entering, Noah orders Shirley to gather reinforcements and block all entrances and exits so that no one enters or leaves there, not even a prince, and considering everything that happened recently, he needs to prepare for the worst. Upon entering the place, Noah quickly defeats the invaders and, when they realize that they are being beaten, they try to take their own lives, but Noah does not allow it. Ozzy meets with Noah and informs him that those invaders ended the lives of all those detained. Noah understands that those men were sent by Albert to silence the prisoners linked to the treason, in a desperate attempt to prevent his plans from being discovered. Noah calls them idiots because that was not even necessary, as they were already going to be executed. So, seeking a solution for the blunder committed by his brother, he drives the sword into himself, leaving Ozzy completely shocked. Noah asks what the maximum penalty is for causing grave injuries to a prince, and Ozzy responds that, without a doubt, it is immediate death penalty. Noah makes it clear that they need to execute the invaders immediately, while complaining about having gone to the trouble of not killing them before, only to end up needing to execute them because his brother ruined everything. A while later, Noah meets with the emperor, who thanks him for having resolved the problem. His father knows perfectly well that the injury was caused by Noah himself because no true rival capable of injuring him has emerged yet. The emperor is very satisfied, since Noah demonstrated being intelligent enough to handle even the mistakes of his brother. And he also thanks him because, with his actions, he is protecting the stability of the kingdom. Noah thinks that, with what he did, he managed to protect the image of his father, since this way he will not be remembered as the emperor who, in his final years, became incapable of controlling his own children. He understands that if his father has not taken measures against Albert yet, it is because that would stain the end of his reign. So he proposes to the emperor to create a higher position called Prince Minister, responsible for supervising the work of Henry, Oscar, and himself. The idea sounds absurd, and the emperor himself responds that this would be impossible because someone with a position like that could prevent important information from reaching him. But Noah insists that it would be merely a symbolic position. That way, everyone would believe that the crown prince is not being surpassed by his brothers. Furthermore, they, as princes, could still communicate directly with the emperor, keeping him informed whenever something important happened, which means that Albert would not have any real power. The emperor understands the strategy and, surprised, recognizes that Noah is even more brilliant than he imagined. So he accepts his proposal and comments that he wished Noah had been born before Albert. For all his deeds, he now wishes to reward him, but not with money. He asks Noah to accompany him and takes him to the treasure room, where he gives him permission to choose anything he wants, since if he managed to find that ring, then he possesses a great ability to discover treasures. Noah advances using the power of Leviathan, which guides him to a small chest. However, upon opening it, his body is enveloped in flames and, inside them, appears a beast similar to Leviathan. Noah notices that, just like Leviathan, that creature also possesses a will of its own. So he uses his sword and orders it to obey him, managing to make it succumb to his power and acquiring, thus, a new treasure capable of increasing his fire attribute. His father approaches surprised seeing that he managed to dominate it, while Cruz comments that that was extremely fast. The emperor says that, among all the treasures, Noah chose Husha. Noah responds that she possesses considerable power, and his father notices immediately that he has already found a way to put him to the test. Quickly, they go outside, where Noah utilizes the power of his new acquisition to attack himself while protecting himself with Leviathan. All of this to measure its strength. He notices that Husha is not as strong as Leviathan, but still possesses a great power. Noah warns his father that he does not need to worry, because he is using the power of Leviathan to contain the flames and prevent the heat from spreading. His father is surprised to see that he already possesses so much control, so he officially hands Husha over to him. Some time later, Noah is gathered with the Emperor while analyzing a report presented by Jane Ararat, the younger brother of the Emperor. The document informs that the problem comes from the nephew of the Emperor, since he caused several damages in his lands and, while he was drunk, ended up murdering a man after an argument, even though he has already been condemned for his crimes. His father, Jane, offered to pay a fine, but Noah responds that, unfortunately, according to the law, it is not possible to hold Jane responsible, because just as a son does not need to pay the debts of the father, parents also must not answer for the crimes of their children. The Emperor comments that that was exactly what he said, but it seems that his brother wants to buy his own peace of mind. Noah observes that he intends to pay 30,000 reins as a fine, the equivalent of approximately 250 years of salary of a common citizen of the capital, a massive amount. Even so, Noah responds that it would still not be possible to charge a fine if Jane did not commit any crime, so his father asks a question, wanting to know if they can formalize a system of voluntary fines, since the coffers of the empire constantly live in crisis. After all, it would help in catastrophes, suppression of rebellions, and various other problems that consume many resources. Noah understands why his father desires that money, but responds that creating this precedent would spread the idea that innocence can be bought with money, which would destroy the value of the laws. Furthermore, those who would actually manage to pay would only be the rich, something that, in the long run, could fuel corruption even more. He understands that the lack of resources is a critical problem, but states that this must be resolved by legitimate means. His father comprehends the argument, thanking Noah for making him see everything clearly. Because of his great wisdom, he officially appoints him as chief advisor. The Emperor notices that Noah does not seem very excited and asks if he did not like the idea. Then Noah responds that he had an idea. Instead of allowing people to pay to escape justice, they can let them pay for prestige. For example, anyone who donated more than 1,000 reins to the empire could receive the title of honorary knight. They would make it clear that the title would not grant any real power, but since it would be the emperor himself who would grant it, many people would desire it, because the truth is that when human beings possess more money than they can manage to spend, they begin to seek an honor that goes beyond the material. His father becomes thrilled and considers the idea magnificent. He does not even waste time and already orders Cruz to go call his son Oscar. Cruz immediately departs to fulfill the order, while Noah warns his father that he remembered pending matters at the ministry and asks for permission to withdraw. In reality, Noah thinks that if he continues to get involved in that matter, he might end up interfering in the matters of Oscar. His father understands this perfectly and praises him for the decision. After that, Noah leaves, but when he is about to exit the castle, he notices that the royal servants are gathered around the hole that he caused. Sis comments that they find themselves surprised by his great deed and, in fact, many fell while investigating. Noah gives her a small pouch with money, warning that it is for the medical expenses of those who fell. At that, he notices that she is carrying something covered and asks what it is. And Sis reveals that it is a crystal box with some scarab beetles, something that was requested for the 16th prince, who likes to see scarab beetles fighting. This seems quite interesting to Noah and, upon leaving while going in the carriage, he makes the spirit of Leviathan fight against that of Husha. Soon we notice that the power of Leviathan is much superior to that of Husha. But thanks to these fights, he can learn a lot from their abilities and assimilate them in a better way, which obviously is going to allow him to get stronger. A maid observes marveling and asks if that is magic. Noah responds that yes and asks if she wants to see more. She affirms excitedly. Therefore Noah invokes Husha again, who appears to be quite competitive, but upon noticing his statistic, he is surprised to see that he rose in level. Thus some time passes, and now, already in his territory, he continues making the two fight. Until now, Leviathan won each one of the fights, but this time Husha wins, because with each defeat, she evolves and gets stronger. And now in the statistics of Noah, his fire attribute rises to F+B. Zoe uses her magic to increase his strength, and upon seeing his statistics again, now he finds himself at level 3. Zoe makes it clear that it is surprising that he is rising in level without even fighting personally, something that had never been seen before. Noah comments that it is not as easy as it seems, because even though he rose to level 2 with a single battle, in order to be able to rise to level 3, he needed to do that 10 times, so he thinks that possibly fighting against the same opponent is not as effective. At that moment Henry appears, who comments that it is quite surprising to see how he sets to fight a sword and a cursed ring. Upon sitting down, he places a small box on the table and informs Noah that the nest of the monsters is finally ready, and the moment has arrived to go to his first battle. He comments that when he opens this box, it will tell the number of soldiers he must take, and when Noah tries, the box transforms into a paper that possesses only the number 1, which means that it is enough to go alone. Henry becomes quite impressed because that is something incredible and tells his brother that he is someone impressive. Sometime later, during the night, Zoe informs that he has a visitor who says he carries an order from the Emperor. Noah orders that they let him enter, and upon meeting with Rise, due to the protocol of the messenger who carries an order from the Emperor, Noah must kneel because, being a message from the Emperor, he must treat the messenger as if he were the Emperor himself. Rise announces that his first battle will be postponed, and after delivering the message, Rise kneels and greets him properly. Noah had forgotten that it was Rise, the trusted man of his brother Henry, and asks what the postponement is due to. And Rise reveals that the Emperor was very pleased upon seeing his result, and as this is an unparalleled event, he wants his debut to be treated as a major occurrence. Because of this, currently both the Emperor and Henry and the 8th Prince are looking for ways to publicize this deed throughout the entire empire. Noah understands that his first battle will have to wait, and after that goes in search of treasures. Upon arriving at the shop, the merchant comments that unfortunately he does not possess any kind of object like those. However, Noah gives him a large sum of money and asks him to obtain something good, anything that has a will of its own. Upon leaving the shop, Shirley asks if it is really alright to give so much money without even having the product, but Noah asks her to relax because that is how nobles shop. At that moment they hear a commotion, and upon approaching to observe, they see a subject beating another simply because the merchant had already set aside the item for another customer, and he wants to buy it just because he possesses a high status. Noah intervenes and asks what is happening, and he, upon seeing that it is Prince Noah, introduces himself as Darren, the trusted man of Prince Gilbert. Noah asks what someone like him is doing threatening in that manner, and Darren, very arrogant, responds by asking how the first Prince Minister of Justice does not know. The people of the Ministry of Noah cannot be judged except for treason or rebellion. This is clearly established in the imperial law. So, however insignificant what he is doing may seem, he recommends that Noah does not meddle in his affairs. Noah becomes irritated because he is right. After all, being a servant of the imperial family and of a prince is a relevant position. And along with his work for the first prince and the privileges, it is not surprising that he has this attitude. But Noah manages to bypass the situation and comments that he understands what he says. However, Darren interrupts him with a quite arrogant attitude, and Noah says that he claimed to serve his brother. Then, he questions what he is doing standing there looking at Noah just like that. Darren realizes his mistake, since by hierarchy he is obliged to demonstrate respect. He tries to apologize, but it is already too late, and Noah orders Shirley to arrest him. Noah makes it clear that he tarnished the name of his brother by lacking respect towards him. For that reason, he announces that he will punish him as the law dictates. He asks those present who has a whip, and a man hands it to him quite eagerly. Darren is tied to a post, and all those present observe him with contempt. He declares that, when he gets out of this, he will make everyone pay because he belongs to the ministry of the imperial household. Shirley asks how many lashes she should give him, and Noah, after reflecting a bit, says that if one of his subordinates abused his authority to oppress people, he would not hesitate to condemn them to death. Upon hearing this, Darren understands that he messed with the wrong person and desperately begs for mercy. Noah simply leaves, leaving Shirley in charge of executing him by whipping. Sometime later, she returns announcing that the subject has already died. Noah congratulates her and asks that, when they write the report, they apply the charges that he already mentioned before. Furthermore, he also asks for some handcuffs. Taking Shirley by surprise, now, at dusk, Noah heads to the territory of his brother, where he asks the guards to say that he went to apologize, so he hopes they can inform him. Just at that moment, the butler Koile appears, who warns Noah that the Lord is waiting for him. And now he finds himself gathered with Gilbert. He says that it is natural to have condemned to death someone who lacked respect towards him, regardless of who it was. However, Noah responds that, even so, he should have consulted him first. For that reason, he came there to apologize. Gilbert thinks of Darren, but does not remember him. At that moment, Koile asks for permission to speak and comments that he was transferred to the ministry of the imperial household a few years ago. Gilbert remembers and comments that, when it comes to that subject, then there is nothing to worry about because, as he behaved quite badly, He ended up firing him and expelling him from that place. Therefore, he does not consider him part of his service. Noah understands his move and, upon handing him the key, Koile takes charge of removing the handcuffs. Gilbert expresses gratitude because he did him a favor, since if that subject had remained on the streets, he would continue committing crimes while falsely using his name. Noah thanks him, while Gilbert says that now he understands why the Emperor designated him as the guardian of the law. Sometime later, upon leaving the mansion, Shirley asks what that apology means. O reveals that, in reality, his brother was furious, but knows it does not benefit him to make an enemy out of him because currently Noah is more prestigious in the eyes of the Emperor. He comments that Gilbert disposes without hesitation of people like Darren or his thugs, and if he did not make things clear, he could suffer punishments in the future. In truth, they practically are enemies, but among the nobility, it is very poorly looked upon to bring up again a matter that had already been forgiven. On the following day, Dylan brings a visitor to him, which seems curious to Noah, since he brought him himself. But Dylan informs that the man claims to be from the ministry of the imperial household. Noah orders that they let him enter and, upon meeting with him, he introduces himself as Don Alt, who tells that, with what happened on the previous day, he was impressed to see how Noah handled the situation. For that reason he went to ask that he permit him to serve him, even if it be in a humble position. Noah responds that he belongs to another ministry, so he could hardly promote him within the ministry of the imperial household. However, Don does not care and makes it clear that he contents himself merely with being called when necessary. Noah accepts and he is grateful. However, when the man leaves, Noah orders Dylan to investigate this subject deeply, but they must be very discreet. After that, while the maids are dressing Noah, Dylan arrives to inform that they have already gathered more information about Don. They clarify that he concealed very well that his parents served the first prince. That is to say, the loyalty runs in the family. In the mansions of the nobility, especially in those of the princes, there exist extremely strict rules and, to prevent leakage of information, the contact of the servants with the outside world is restricted. For that reason, it is customary for servants to marry by recommendation of their masters. Thus, the children born from these unions must also swear loyalty to the master. Dylan comments that probably the first prince sent him as a spy, but Noah asks Dylan not to tell this to anyone, since if he truly is a spy, they will be able to take plenty of advantage of it. Dylan praises him because he managed to identify a spy merely upon seeing him, even though Noah knows that it was not due to him having a good eye, but rather because, after accepting that subject as a servant, his statistics did not change. Dylan also informs that the treasurer managed to obtain the treasure he was looking for, so he permits his entry and, upon meeting with Noah, he demonstrates respect and asks the maids to bring the treasure. Just upon seeing it, it is already obvious that it is a painting and, upon removing the cloth that covered it, Noah approaches. The merchant comments that the work is called Fuagua and was painted by a very famous artist. But, from what he can perceive, it is not a normal painting. Noah notices that it is completely cursed, and the merchant asks him to wait a moment. Then they bring a replica of the painting. The seller says that, as he can observe, the replica was made at the same time in which the original was painted, but the original seems more mature. Noah understands that the original work is a painting that ages and, thanks to Leviathan, manages to notice this, so he attacks the painting. However, it does not break and, instead of that, the girl from the painting emerges from it. The seller is left lost, while the girl from the painting merely observes Noah. She communicates, but they are words that the seller does not understand. Yet Noah hears perfectly and tells that that is a work painted with her own blood. And apparently the artist murdered her when she was still small and mixed her blood with the pigments. He understands that the girl wants to return the favor for having freed her. So, in that case, he asks that she swear loyalty to him. She accepts and begins to enter and exit the painting, while the seller cannot believe it. And thanks to the acquisition of Fuagua, his earth attribute increased a bit. She positions herself before the seller and uses her power to transform into him. He combines the power of his ring with Fuagua and, upon asking the seller to touch her, he is surprised seeing that she is tangible, or at least her right hand. Noah reveals that he can make the entire body tangible, but, for now, that is merely an experiment. He congratulates the merchant on the excellent work, warning that he will pay the requested amount and hopes that he can obtain more treasures like that. After that, Alan meets with Noah and brings a large quantity of goods. Noah asks what all that is that he brought and Alan responds that, Since Ada received the favor of His Majesty and was appointed his wife, he brought all those small gifts as a form of gratitude. Noah remembers that Ada is the woman whom Alan sent to the palace as a maid. This happened 6 years ago, and it was he who advised the emperor to choose her. Noah says that those gifts must be worth around 30,000 rines. Alan is impressed, since he guessed exactly the value and would expect nothing less from him. Then he comments that Ada will start as a commoner consort, but with time she can manage to become an official consort. And now it is explained that the consorts are classified into different categories. In first place, there are the commoner consorts and the secondary ones, and above them are the official ones. And above everyone, as the principal wife, stands the empress. They rise in position according to the favor of the emperor, or the status of their children. And since only one empress can exist, being an official consort is the highest one can reach. Alan comments that now it only remains to pray that Ada receives even more favors from the emperor. But Noah corrects him, mentioning that from that moment on, what matters is politics. Winning over the emperor is the fastest path. However, besides that, the politics among the consorts themselves is crucial. Because, for example, bad things could happen if they replace the perfume Ada uses with one that the emperor hates. He makes it clear that the harem of the emperor is a nest of snakes much worse than the world of men. Noah recommends starting to send money to her, because now that Alan knows that that female world is political, he should understand what he needs to do. Alan expresses gratitude and, worried, quickly begins to act. Upon leaving, Noah asks Zoe to please take that letter and 10,000 rines to his mother. Zoe accepts, but comments that, since it is a task of the palace, she feels that the most appropriate thing would be to send Dylan. But Noah responds that men cannot enter the harem. For that reason, he can only see her once a year, because the princes are separated from their mothers at birth and can only meet them again once a year. He also asks her to deliver a message warning that he intends to protect Ada. Zoe understands that Noah has the intention to involve his mother in the political game, because that is how the imperial family functions. Interests and status are more important than affection, and if Ada elevates her status, she will become an excellent ally for his mother. Zoe accepts his orders, even though she feels that that is a terrifying world. She prepares to depart, but before that, Noah asks how her mother is. She tells that they are very well thanks to everything he did for them, and her mother, as she is the one responsible for opening and closing the gates, shared that on a certain occasion she heard a noise at midnight and, when she went to investigate, she saw a strange silhouette that ran away. So it seems that someone enters and exits hidden during the night. Noah listens to her and comments that she did very well to report this, and orders her to tell her mother not to comment on this to anyone else. Sometime later, when the mother of Zoe is about to close the gates, she is captured from behind and put to sleep. Don Alt runs away. However, now we discover that the one who died in reality was not the mother of Zoe, since the three find themselves hidden observing. Noah understands that the subject returned to kill her upon thinking that she believed she had seen him while he was fleeing through the mansion. But in reality, the one who died was Husha. Zoe is surprised upon seeing her, since until shortly before she was the identical copy of her mother. Husha leaves, while Noah recommends to Zoe and her mother that they return again to their hometown and make the fake funeral of her mother, since if they remain in the mansion, they could be attacked again, and he will call her back when everything is resolved. Zoe and her mother express gratitude, but she asks if by chance he intends to let the man from before escape. However, Noah asks her not to worry because Husha is watching him. And on the following day we see how Don Alt awakens worried, wondering where he is. Noah is by his side and recommends that he does not move much because he was on the verge of death. Don Alt does not remember, but Noah refreshes his memory, telling that, after reporting that he had silenced the witness, his own contact stabbed him. They got rid of him for having been a bad spy. He reveals that he placed vigilance over him thinking that this could happen, even though in reality he did not believe that they would truly do that. Don Alt is surprised, since Noah managed to predict that they would discard him. He smiles and laments, since if instead of being a spy he had been by his side from the beginning, perhaps everything would have been different. Noah comments that he can be by his side from that moment on, since he feels that, if destiny had been another, perhaps he would have been one of his men, and clarifies that it is still not late to change course. And Don Alt, surprised, asks if he is speaking seriously. Noah confirms, but makes it very clear that he is someone even more strict when it comes to betrayal. So, if he swears loyalty, he must know that only death will free him from his service. But in exchange for that, he will never turn his back on him. Don Alt begins to cry and, grateful, asks that he please accept him as a subordinate. Noah observes that his win statistics increased, which means that he truly is swearing loyalty. Noah warns that the first thing is for him to recover completely. Meanwhile, he will manufacture a new identity and arrange for a ruined noble family to adopt him. He also thinks of giving him a position as an official in Armelia so that he goes unnoticed. Don Alt expresses gratitude and remembers something important. Then, as a way to try to pay the debt he has to Noah, he reveals that his former master, Prince Gilbert, sent something to the Emperor. But we still do not know what it was. However, we see that Noah is surprised upon hearing this. And now, in the Imperial Palace, Noah finds himself gathered with his father and asks that he please immediately stop drinking the Phoenix alcohol. The Emperor remembers that alcohol was what Gilbert began to send him in that year, and the same that is produced in his lands. He asks his son the reason. And Noah explains that, if consumed alone, it is an excellent alcohol with tonic and strengthening effects. But if consumed with a certain substance, it transforms into a deadly poison. His father asks what that substance is, and Noah reveals that it is the dragon claw. The Emperor comments that this is the drink that both he and the Crown Prince usually drink at the annual ceremony to honor their ancestor. He explains that the fact that they have been drinking that for a year demonstrates that it is not poison. Because of this, no one would suspect that mixing it with the dragon claw would transform it into a deadly poison. And if anyone knew about this, they would say that it was simply a tragic accident. The Emperor understands that it is a perfect form of murder. He asks his son if he is sure of what he is implying, and Noah reveals that he proved this with a death row inmate, to whom he promised freedom in case he survived. The effect of taking these two things is immediate. The Emperor understands that, without the intervention of Noah, both he and the Crown Prince would have died at the ceremony and asks Cruz to call Henry, in addition to ordering the troops to surround the mansion of the first prince and search it completely. Afterward, he asks Noah to withdraw for that day and, later, thinks of communicating his reward. Noah leaves and, on that very night, the army invades the mansion of the first prince, and thanks to the confession of the butler, the troops find the evidence revealing that they were conducting experiments to test the poison on illegal slaves and, thanks to the intervention of Noah, the plans of Gilbert were frustrated. However, Noah feels a bit bad because the information network of the Emperor had never failed. So, he questions why. On that occasion, the Emperor knew nothing. Quickly, he notices that the Emperor already knew everything, and he approaches to confess that Noah truly is incredible. The Emperor admits that he knew from the beginning, and that for a long time he stopped drinking that alcohol. He has been Emperor for a long time, and there are many people who desire to take his post. But, from what he can perceive, Noah is not one of them. Noah confirms this, and the Emperor appoints him Vice Minister of Military Affairs, and he will perform this position along with that of Minister of Justice. In addition, he also grants him the title of Commander of the First Army, known as the Royal Guard. Noah accepts, but wonders what all that means. The Emperor mentions that he does not intend to fall so easily, and that, if he were defeated by his own son, it would be a laughingstock for future generations. However, if something like that happens to occur, he wants it to be Noah who takes control of the capital with the Imperial Guard and places on the throne someone worthy of being emperor. And Noah is impressed upon understanding that his father is leaving to him the choice of the next emperor. Some time later, Noah and Albert find themselves before the emperor. Noah informs his father that, after searching the entire mansion of his brother, they found overwhelming evidence about his plot to assassinate him. And as the law says, attempting to assassinate the emperor is a crime of high treason, punished with decapitation. However, in that case, Noah offers to judge it as an attempt, since that way the emperor could have the choice to execute him or not. Albert asks Noah why he wants to complicate things so much. If he is condemned to death, the best thing is to get rid of him as soon as possible. But the emperor interrupts him and makes it clear that Noah is analyzing the entire situation from both sides, both by the law and by empathy. He congratulates him for making a good analysis. Meanwhile, Noah thinks that he proposed that because the emperor is a father and he gave him the most practical alternative, which is life imprisonment. Even so, Albert continues saying to his father that they must not hesitate and that the best thing is to get rid of that idiot. His father does not look upon that very well, but orders him to take care of the execution and warns that he may now withdraw. Upon leaving, the emperor congratulates Noah for the consideration he had in a situation like that, making it clear that this simple gesture brings him a bit of peace. He mentions that he is thinking of delivering to him the lands he confiscated from Gilbert. However, Noah refuses and explains that this entire matter started because he denounced Gilbert, and if he were to receive his lands as a reward, the other princes might begin denouncing one another out of mere self-interest, which would generate many internal conflict. The emperor responds that he should not worry, as he was only thinking about it because he believes it is good for his sons to begin competing. But he does not intend to tolerate them sabotaging one another. For that reason, he cannot reward him for this matter. He was only considering the possibility. But in any case, he will reward him in his own way. Very soon, Noah will settle on his own estate, so the time has come to look for a principal wife for him. Noah understands and thinks that getting married at 12 years old is nothing unusual in royalty. He hopes his wife is well endowed. The principal wife of a prince is always chosen for political reasons and must be a woman of compatible status. In this manner, the princes have neither voice nor vote in the matter, but by luck, sometimes they have the right to choose. The emperor asks Noah what he thinks of the granddaughter of his uncle, the Prince of Lightning, since according to a prediction there exists the possibility that they might have a very intelligent child. There is exactly a 1% chance that he will have even more talent than Noah. But since Noah has no right to give an opinion, he responds that it will be a great honor. His father warns that he will begin the preparations, and with that, Noah withdraws. The maids of the household of Noah almost had a heart attack. Upon leaving, the Prime Minister comments to the Emperor that it is necessary to recognize the merit of Prince Noah. He did not even ask the name of the girl, much less what class she was from. And that is exactly how an imperial prince must behave. Any man would feel curiosity about his future wife, but Noah maintained his posture at that age, and that is something admirable. And as the saying goes, choose your successor based on your grandchildren. Since a good grandson guarantees prosperity for 3 generations, the emperor asks the prime minister if it is possible that he will have a grandson capable of surpassing him. And he responds that, up to the present moment, the only one capable of doing that is Noah. And if he manages to transmit his talent to his descendants, the future will be brilliant. After that, on his lands, Don Alt kneels before Noah and begs for forgiveness for having betrayed his former master. So he asks Noah to at least strike him. But Noah does not understand what he is talking about. People are a treasure, and he does not kill without reason, and mainly because the imperial law forgives informants of treason. He did not send for him to punish him. He did it to warn that Gilbert has already been executed. Because of this, he no longer needs to change his name or flee the capital. In addition to telling that informing a case of treason carries a reward of up to 1,000 rines, but on that occasion, he will contribute from his own pocket to add another 0 to that amount. And he does this because he saved the life of his father. Don Alt becomes emotional, while Noah warns that now he can return him to the ministry of the imperial household as his vassal. And he responds that he will serve him for the rest of his life, no matter where he sends him. And now, sometime later in the capital, he finds himself accompanied by his youngest maid, who points to a tumult of people. They approach to inspect and notice a quite attractive girl who is challenging everyone to fight against her for the price of 3 rines. If they manage to defeat her, she will be the reward, becoming a wife, mistress, or servant, obeying any order. One of those present approaches excited and advances rapidly against her. But the girl leaves him unconscious with great ease and still charges the 3 rines. The subject runs away embarrassed while the girl asks who will be next. One by one, everyone begins to fight against her, and one by one, everyone is defeated. However, when another subject arrives, the girl asks for the money, but he responds that he will not pay because he is certain that he will win. He advances rapidly against her, and when she tries to dodge him, she feels her body strange, so without managing to move, she receives the attack. The subject warns that now she belongs to him. But at that moment Noah intervenes, announcing that what he did was a violation of the rules. Noah points out that they used a paralytic, that is to say, it was 2 against 1. The man asks what he is talking about. However, Noah uses his artifacts to make the accomplice fall. The subject denies knowing him, but those present begin to shout at him to stop lying, because that is one of his cronies. The man becomes furious upon seeing that his plans were frustrated, so he advances against Noah, but he leaves him unconscious. The man runs away humiliated, but warns that he will return. After that, the girl awakens and a lady takes a cup of tea to her, saying that she should thank that young man. Noah asks the girl what is the last thing she remembers, and she responds that she was fighting against an unpleasant subject, but suddenly her legs stopped responding. He He explains the entire situation, but also makes it clear that she was very reckless. Then he asks her to explain the reasons for doing all that, and she tells that she did it because she had no money for the journey. She went to the capital for the selection of knights, but was rejected and had no money to return to her village. For that reason she was doing this. However, Noah asks her to stop because that makes no sense, since he saw what she is capable of, and there is no possibility that they rejected someone so strong. She responds that she thinks the same, and for that reason she investigated, revealing that the examiner of that year was the 10th prince, who called her and said that he could let her pass in exchange for having her for himself. Noah asks her to stop, since he understands perfectly what she refers to, and knows very well that his brother is capable of saying something like that. He asks the girl if she still wants to become a knight, and she demonstrates being very determined to achieve that, but by her own merit. Noah likes her attitude, so he hands her a small pouch with 100 reins, which will be able to cover her expenses until the next selection, and asks Jiggy to find a place for her to stay. The girl cannot understand why he gave her so much money, and Noah responds that this is simply because she pleased him, since instead of using her charm, she wants to triumph with her own talent. The girl asks who he is, since he does not look like a regular boy, but suddenly they are interrupted by the thugs from before, who are there thinking they can give a beating to Noah. He uses the power of the Ring of Fire and finishes off everyone very fast. The girl is surprised because he moves perfectly, wondering who that boy is. After finishing off everyone, Noah notices a knight and understands that it is the knight of the 10th prince. He kneels desperately and begs for forgiveness, while the girl finally realizes that he is the wise prince and her eyes begin to shine. Noah charges the knight with the punishment of all that shame and warns that he forgives him because he did not actually attack him, but only that one time. The knight takes all the idiots away, and at that moment a mysterious old man begins to applaud Noah. Noah asks who that subject is. However, upon seeing a golden flask by his side, he realizes who it is, so he kneels before him, greeting the Prince of Lightning, Indra Ararat. Soon we see that several decades ago, when the Emperor came to the throne, Indra held absolute power as Prince Regent. As the Emperor was young, the empire plunged into chaos. However, Indra utilized his strength to calm everything down. 5 years later, he retired suddenly, since he chose to live secluded on his lands, but it was thanks to him that the Emperor could govern directly. They say that was how he received the title of Lightning. Indra asks Noah to sit by his side and assumes that the Emperor has already told him about the matter. Noah asks if that was to put him to the test, and Indra responds that, as the Emperor trusts him, there would not even be a need to test him. But they are talking about the future of his granddaughter. Noah thinks that the way he speaks would make any inspecting official angry, since, even though he is the uncle of the Emperor, he remains a subject, and calling him merely Emperor is a lack of respect, but he doubts that he cares if they accuse him. Furthermore, the Emperor would not fight with him either. Noah asks what would happen if he failed to convince him, and Indra responds that he simply would not accept that he marry his granddaughter. Noah recalls that that is an imperial decree, but Indra does not care even a bit. But of course, if it were a normal order from the Emperor, he would obey even if it were madness. However, they are talking about his beloved granddaughter, which transforms that matter from something political into something familial. Furthermore, the one who gave the order was his nephew, and if he does not like the idea, he is simply going to hit him on his head to make him give up. Noah finds that man very interesting. He does not seem to have ambitions for power, and perhaps because of that they tolerate his lack of respect and even like it. Noah asks if he passed the test, but Indra responds that it is precisely that which he is going to verify. Quickly Noah begins to feel an overwhelming pressure, just like the one he himself uses to subjugate his opponents. But he counterattacks with Leviathan and tries to end that quickly. However, later he backs down, since it is best to leave it at a draw. Even so, Indra accepts his defeat, because he managed to perceive that Noah measured his strength and used his own energy to force a draw. He responds that he liked him very much and that he can leave his little granddaughter under his care. And as he is in a very good mood, he tells a waiter to serve all the alcohol he has and begins to throw money so that everyone drinks with him. Noah smiles and observes that his extravagance has no limits, but at that moment, Indra hands him an engagement ring. Upon taking it, Noah is transported to another space, and a voice tells him to demonstrate his power. A mechanical bull tries to attack him, but Noah defeats it with Leviathan, and upon achieving this, the spirit of the ring warns that it submits before him and introduces itself as Bahamut. Noah observes that now his darkness attribute rose to rank C and then returns to reality. Indra warns that it is named Bahamut and possesses a power equivalent to his own. Noah gives a small demonstration and Indra is surprised to see that he tamed Bahamut so fast, something that not even he himself managed to do. The ring only told him its name, and he wished he could see its golden figure again. Noah invokes it and asks if that was what he wanted to see, and Indra makes it clear that he is an incredible boy. Noah explains that normally he makes the spirits fight among themselves to assimilate their powers and technique. Indra cannot understand, and then Noah gives him a small demonstration. However, upon invoking the four, Noah causes a strange phenomenon, since Leviathan, Fuagwa, Husha, and now Bahamut are spirits that had not gathered in the same place since the Silver Era, that is to say, thousands of years ago. But now Noah gathered the four. Noah feels as if his soul flew very far away, and then begins to hear the voices of his spirits, who comment that they had not gathered since the Silver Era, and the boy who managed to gather them at that time was someone exceptional, who possessed level 255. Leviathan comments that when everyone gathers they will recover their power, which will be the greatest threat since creation. Fuagwa notices that Leviathan likes the boy very much, which is quite strange, and calls it a rabid dog. Noah awakens from his hallucination, and the people present wonder if what they heard was the voice of heaven. Indra responds that he also heard it and comments to Noah that he is someone impressive, and that what he achieved deserves a celebration. Noah agrees, so he asks Jiggy to deliver Rhines to all those present. The citizens begin to acclaim him. After all, in times of prosperity, a good noble shares the joy instead of accumulating it. And sharing with the people is also considered a duty of the nobility. Those who refuse to do that are merely third-rate nobles. A second-rate noble does it out of pride, but a first-rate noble does it naturally. At that moment, the girl from before bows before Noah and, with total respect, warns that she needs to refuse his help because she wants to become his knight, and, to achieve that, she must strive and become someone worthy of him. Noah smiles and denies her refusal, commenting that receiving help and doing nothing would be unacceptable. But only a second-rate knight would reject it out of pride. However, a first-rate knight feels no shame in receiving help and, instead of that, returns to their lord much more than they received. If she truly desires to become his knight, she must act in that manner. The girl understands perfectly and then leaves, while Indra congratulates Noah because, in few words, he planted a quite interesting seed. At that moment, the emperor appears and asks Indra if that is not splendid. Quickly everyone kneels before him. However, the emperor tells the uncle and the son that they do not need formalities being outside the palace. He asks Indra to approach, and then Noah stands up and invokes Husha, and then Leviathan to instill fear and respect. Thanks to this, he does not perceive bad intentions in any of those present. And some time later, upon settling down, Indra makes it clear to the emperor that it is surprising Noah is so serene despite his young age. He responds that it was precisely because of that he gave him the title of wise, just as the title of lightning matches him perfectly. He also makes it clear that Noah still needs to demonstrate his wisdom, because it has already been decided that he will have to go alone to his first battle. The citizens, upon hearing this, cannot believe it, since normally princes need to go accompanied by large escorts. Noah notices that now the attention of the people concentrated on him, which ends up being quite useful to protect the emperor. But he also notices that the emperor possesses another intention and, upon understanding what it is, accepts his kindness. The emperor comments to Indra that he just created a situation where it would be easy for Noah to escort him. And Noah understood perfectly and entered the game. Being precisely that what makes him impressive, Indra responds that that is incredible, since not even he noticed. And the emperor confirms, saying that Indra is bold, but lacks subtlety. Now he knows that his granddaughter will be in good hands. However, at that moment, the emperor warns Indra that he needs to talk with him. Noah notices the serious tone. After that, Indra and the emperor are in the carriage while Noah takes charge of escorting them. Shortly before they begin to talk, Noah notices this and uses Husha to draw the attention of the people. With this, the emperor takes the opportunity to tell the uncle that he is thinking of deposing the crown prince. At one point he thought he could improve, but now the time has come to accept that he is not worthy of the throne. Indra asks for the reason, and he replies that it is because of Gilbert. Meanwhile, Noah thinks that he tried to condemn him to life imprisonment to prevent the emperor from having to kill his own son. However, the crown prince desired to get rid of him, and even though what he did was not right, there were certainly other ways to resolve that. Indra replies that he is also worried, because if Albert ascends the throne, he would expel many people. The Emperor knows perfectly well that he would eliminate Henry, Oscar, and Noah before anyone else, and with such cruelty and narrow-mindedness, he could never hand the throne over to him. To Indra, that seems like a wise decision, so he asks who the Emperor has in mind to assume the throne. But the Emperor replies that he has no one in mind. Indra then makes it clear that this is a mistake, because he is already old, and if he dies suddenly without leaving a worthy successor, the country will divide. Listening to them converse, Noah understands that the Emperor summoned his uncle precisely because of his sincerity when speaking. The Emperor comments that it is not that he has not decided yet, but announcing it at that moment would only bring trouble. At that moment, Noah interrupts and asks his father what he thinks about announcing only the existence of a will, and that the name of the successor is written in it. Indra comments that this would not work because they could easily forge it. Noah understands, so he proposes hiding the will on his own body as a simple inscription on a denture or some kind of spell. Indra likes the idea because that way they would not be able to replace it. Upon arriving at the royal palace, the Emperor informs Noah that he will proceed with that idea. Noah listens to him and recommends that the command of the army also return to him. The best thing would be to revoke Henry's position as minister and the command he possesses over the Imperial Guard, because if someone discontented with the will controlled the army, they could eliminate the others to ascend the throne. Indra congratulates Noah, as he is surprised to see that he himself gave up his position, which makes him even more worthy of being his political grandson. The Emperor delivers the decree that thanks him for his services but dismisses him as the commander and, in the same way, delivers another one to the messenger destined for Henry. And with a few signs, the messenger understands the order. Since he is a special messenger for this type of situation and cannot read, speak, or hear, Indra asks how they intend to depose the crown prince, and Noah gives his opinion as a representative of the Ministry of Justice, advising his father that he can do this however he wants, because he has total freedom to appoint or depose the successor as he sees fit, and no one can question this decision. However, unlike Gilbert, Albert has not committed any crime, so the best thing is for him to retain his title of prince, even if he loses the right to the throne. The Emperor announces how he intends to do this, commenting that Prince Albert is loyal to the crown and the empire, but lacks the necessary capacity for the throne. For this reason, he will be deposed as the crown prince. Noah likes the idea and proposes adding a title such as the Prince of the End, to make it clear that there is no possibility of him ever being restored as the heir. The Emperor is satisfied and begins to draft the decree, but Indra notices that the document has many errors. The Emperor acknowledges this and makes it clear that, even if he is not killing his own son, he is deserting him, and that remains something extremely hard. Understanding his father's feelings, Noah suggests leaving the document exactly as it is, because decrees are kept in the records. And when Albert sees it, he will probably be able to understand the Emperor's feelings while writing it. The Emperor comments that he wishes Noah had been born much earlier and thanks him for the advice. The Emperor delivers the decree to the messenger, who reacts upon seeing it. Noah acts quickly and warns that eunuch reacted when looking at the document and became disconcerted because he understood the content. The messenger tries to flee, but Noah stops him. The Emperor sends for crews and warns that man knows how to read. The subject panics and quickly kneels, begging for the Emperor's forgiveness, since that was a carelessness on his part. The Emperor asks Noah how they should punish him, and he replies that they must execute him immediately for the crime of pretending to be illiterate while holding a key position in the government. Indra asks if it would not be better to kill him only after making him confess, and Noah understands that this would be the best option, because that way they could discover and eliminate the mastermind behind the scheme, and there are chances that the person responsible is Albert or one of the other princes. The Emperor and Indra understand the problem, so they decide to leave things as they are. Afterwards, they ask Noah what they should do with Cruz. He is trembling with fear, and Noah replies that the only crime committed by Cruz was the lack of supervision, so it is enough to reduce his salary for 6 months. Cruz expresses his gratitude, and the Emperor orders him to get rid of the body. Some time later, the Emperor meets with the Prime Minister, who informs him that, since it was a eunuch, he carried out the execution alone by himself. He mentions that Noah continues to surprise more and more, while the Emperor laments. He knows nothing about the matter, but if the mastermind is Albert or any of his sons, the situation becomes complicated, because even if they are not worthy to rule, they remain his children. At that moment, the Prime Minister asks if he happens to know the name Leviathan, and the Emperor replies that he was one of the 4 sages of the Silver Era who helped the Emperor of that time. The Prime Minister comments that this Leviathan is apparently lending his power to Noah, which is impressive, since with Noah among them, they might even manage to surpass the Silver Era. The Emperor comments that they will need to observe how everything will develop, so he will continue to follow his steps with great attention. The next day, Noah leaves the castle and his wonderful knight asks where he is going. Noah finds it strange, because normally she does not interrupt him. Shirley asks for forgiveness and replies that she only noticed he looked worried. Noah replies that her assumption is correct, but that she should not worry because, even though he is going to a complicated place, his life is not in danger. And then, we discover that he is heading to the lands of the Crown Prince. Sometime later, they finally arrive at the lands of Albert, who comments to Noah that he never imagined the popular Minister of Justice would visit him. Noah apologizes for appearing without prior notice, but Albert asks him to relax because they are brothers. Noah thanks him and asks Shirley and the others to wait outside, because with this gesture he demonstrates that he trusts his brother. While walking through the garden, Noah observes the beautiful plants and trees present in his brother's garden. Albert replies that he will send some to his residence, because Noah knows how to appreciate what is good. That will be the second time he gives him a gift, and he also notices that Noah has already perfectly mastered the sword Leviathan. Albert confesses that back then it was just a joke, but that Noah taught him a great lesson, that great power must be in the hands of someone worthy of it. Noah takes advantage of the situation to comment that summer is approaching, and he heard that the Emperor will go to the north to spend the season. But that, unlike other years, this time he wants the Crown Prince to accompany him. Albert changes his expression upon hearing that because in previous years, when the Emperor traveled during the summer, he left the Crown Prince in charge of the capital. In this way, he gradually granted him control of the empire, but since that will not happen this year, it means they intend to depose him. Seeing Noah serious, Albert asks how much he knows. Noah replies that the Emperor told him in a subtle way, as he wishes to teach him step by step the essence of governing. He understands perfectly that the Emperor will take Albert with him, but only because he does not trust leaving him out of his sight. Even so, he hopes that, by spending some time together, his brother will manage to understand their father a little better. Albert stands up and says goodbye to Noah, and some time later, upon returning to the capital, Noah finds himself at the theater along with Shirley. Alichi approaches to greet him and let him know that, just as he requested, she will sing with all her heart, and while she sings, we see what the people are doing. Upon returning to his territory, Zoe apologizes to Noah for interrupting him at those hours of the night, but informs him that there is a woman who wishes to see him. Noah asks what her name is and Zoe comments that she is called Olivia. The name does not sound familiar to Noah, but he knows that Zoe would not interrupt him if it were not something important, so he asks for her to be let in, and thus Olivia is introduced. This beautiful woman reveals that she possesses confidential information and shares that the Crown Prince will launch a coup d'etat this very night with the objective of forcing the Emperor off the throne. Before taking any action, Noah asks how she knows this information. Olivia reveals herself to be the daughter of Coil, a servant of the former First Prince Gilbert. Noah understands that she was born into a family of servants, and we discover that children born to servants in service of a prince grow up in that environment and come to view it as something natural, making it easy to swear absolute loyalty to the prince they serve. She knows that Noah did everything to save the life of the first prince. Olivia swore that she would take revenge and managed to get close to Albert, taking advantage of the body she inherited from her parents. In this way, she managed to hear everything. Albert intends to carry out the coup before the official announcement happens, because as long as he is still the Crown Prince, he can mobilize the troops and seize the Imperial Palace. From what she knows, Albert intends to force the Emperor to abdicate and abandon the throne, so she begs Noah to do whatever he wants with her life and her body, but to please put an end to Albert. Noah sighs and replies that he understands her feelings, asking what she worked as when she served Gilbert. Olivia replies that she was an apprentice butler alongside her father, and Noah informs her that, from that moment on, she will perform the same function in that mansion and receive the same salary as before. Confused, Olivia asks why she is receiving such good treatment. Noah replies that, even after losing her master, she still tries to avenge him, which means that her loyalty continues even after death and that he is merely buying that loyalty. Olivia replies that Noah is someone extraordinary and swears loyalty to him. At that moment, Noah notices that his darkness attribute has also increased. Upon leaving the room, Zoe and Diddy become worried, but Noah replies that he will go out alone. Diddy tries to argue that it is already very late, but Zoe interrupts her and tells her master that they will be waiting for his return. Some time later, Noah moves very fast while thinking that, if his brother intends to exercise his authority, the only army he can mobilize is that of the Ministry of Military Affairs. Around 1,000 soldiers trained to obey superior orders without questioning absolutely anything. Now, Albert is making a speech to his soldiers, warning them that water can rot when it stays still, and the same happens to countries. Currently, the emperor is stagnant, surrounded only by flatterers, and the time has come to make the kingdom flow again, removing him from the way so that the kingdom they love so much can prosper again. The soldiers support him, but at that moment Noah intervenes and asks for his brother not to commit any madness, because there is still time to stop. Albert asks who told him all that, but Noah replies that this no longer matters, and that, if he takes this step, it will be his ruin. However, Albert makes it clear that he does not intend to stand still waiting for death to arrive. Upon hearing that, Noah asks if Albert by any chance did not read the decree that the emperor wrote, and if he did not notice the anguish of his own father while writing that text. The emperor never made public anything that Albert did, because he wanted to spare him and, up to that moment, was still trying to find a way to keep him alive. However, Albert does not intend to sit around being just a prince. He spent 35 years waiting for the day when he would finally sit on that throne. And now this is the treatment he receives. His father grew old and became a coward, and if he intends to continue clinging to the throne, then he will be forced to abandon it, because that is how things work in the nation of warriors. Noah understands that his brother does not accept being just a prince, but for the commoners and even for himself, being a prince is already something supreme, because being born with this privilege allows one to do what they believe is right and use this power for the benefit of the people. However, for his brother, the former crown prince, being demoted to this position is like losing his own life. Even so, Noah does not intend to allow him to commit that madness. Albert then orders the soldiers to capture his brother Noah, calling him a traitor. Noah quickly blocks the attacks of the soldiers, who even while facing a prince, continue to blindly obey Albert's orders without questioning anything. They are extremely well-trained soldiers. Precisely because of this, Noah does not want to involve them in that situation. The problem is that there are many of them. At that instant, one of the voices of the spirits echoes inside his mind, asking for their master to invoke the power he desires, pronouncing his true name. Then Noah pronounces the name Behemoth, and the spirits inside him fuse, creating a power capable of reducing everything to ashes. Before his presence, the soldiers panic, especially Albert. Behemoth attacks them with a gigantic rain of fire, causing intense pain to the soldiers. Noah then warns that that is enough, because he does not want to kill those men. Behemoth disappears, and when Noah approaches Albert, who is completely terrified, he asks if Noah intends to kill him. Noah replies that he will not do that, because his father would be devastated if one of his sons killed another. So he delivers poison, warning that he will not raise a hand against him. But he will also not stop him from taking his own life. Albert refuses and insults Noah, asking who he thinks he is. But Noah recommends that he does not do that, because if he is killed officially, all his family and his men will be executed as traitors. There is still time to resolve everything, saying that Albert tried to rebel, but at the last instant he repented and took his own life. In this way, they could pretend that nothing happened and still prevent his entire family and his subordinates from being involved, because his eldest son could still inherit the leadership of the house. Even so, Albert refuses to accept that and orders his men, Foster and Howard, to capture Noah. The two exchange glances and silently agree. Noah observes them while Albert claims that he will kill that useless old man and take the throne. But Albert is surprised to notice that his own men immobilize him. They warn him that they can no longer follow him, because even in the face of that situation, Lord Noah was still worried about Albert's families and men, while he continued insisting on killing the emperor. Albert orders them not to be deceived, but Howard asks him to remain silent and asks if he by any chance does not remember when he released the seal of Leviathan and sacrificed 120 people, exposing them to the miasma. Howard reveals that among the victims were his older brother and also his childhood friends. Noah then realizes that those were the tormented souls he felt upon obtaining Leviathan. Oster also informs the prince that his own father was among the victims. Even so, Albert continues with his arrogant attitude, making it clear that he is the crown prince and that their lives belong to him. Howard covers Albert's mouth while Foster tells Noah that the Crown Prince repented of his crimes and decided to take his own life. Albert panics upon hearing that, while Noah sends for Olivia and hands her the poison. Crying, Olivia expresses her gratitude while Albert insults her, asking if she forgot that he possessed her in his mansion and how much he enjoyed that. Foster forces Albert's mouth to open while Olivia pours the poison. As soon as he swallows it, the effect is immediate and Albert falls to the ground, thinking that he waited 35 years to finally take the throne, something he never managed to achieve. After his death, Noah shows sadness over the death of his psychopathic and maddened brother. Foster, Howard, and Olivia, following Noah's strategy, apologize and inform that unfortunately Lord Albert took his own life. He recognized his grave errors and sincerely repented. As a last request, he begged that they would have mercy on the family he left behind. Noah continues staging all of that, obviously to save both his brother's family and his subordinate. And according to the law, both the informant and they will receive their due rewards, and the other soldiers will not suffer punishment. In addition, Noah promises to talk to the emperor, so that Albert's eldest son inherits the family house. The soldiers express their gratitude, and Noah notices how those two men are incredibly strong, as their statistics increased greatly. He thinks it is a pity that such good men abandoned Albert, but this only reinforces even more his ideology that people are a treasure. His brother always despised this, and for this reason, he would never succeed in his rebellion. Meanwhile, the emperor is in the treasure room before the coffin of Leviathan. He comments to the prime minister that recently the coffin began to move, which perhaps means that Noah's sword Leviathan has begun to awaken. The emperor then asks the prime minister to tell what happened, and he reveals that Noah discovered everything at the same time as them and immediately went to the location. According to the received information, the crown prince decided to take his own life. The emperor asks to be left alone for a moment and, once alone, thinks that even in a situation like that, Noah behaved exceptionally. In this way, Gilbert Ararat and Albert Ararat, the princes who conspired to assassinate the emperor and take the throne, disappeared from that world. And as a result, the Empire of Mirrors entered a new era completely different from the previous one. Now we see that, in a distant land, a little girl listens to this story full of enthusiasm. A story about Prince Noah. She asks what else happens in this story, but the woman replies that she does not know yet, because this story still continues. Then, 3 years later, we see that Nitz, the capital of the Almeria province, has developed greatly. Zoe informs Shirley that they received gifts sent by Evelyn. The maids organize all the gifts, since Noah is celebrating his 15th birthday. Jiggy comments that, with each year, they receive even more things, but Zoe replies that this is normal when it comes to Lord Noah. In some way, this also reflects the number of people Noah helped, and Zoe hopes to manage to be very useful to Lord Noah. For his part, Noah is training, and has now become a very strong man. He is accompanied by his fiancée. Some time later, they prepare to have breakfast and his fiancée is extremely excited because he will finally turn 15 years old and she will stop using her last name, which means that she will finally become his true wife. Noah asks her not to pressure herself so much because of that. In any case, he does not intend to allow anyone to take away anyone who is under his roof. Meanwhile, we see Indra commenting that, according to what he discussed with the emperor, the successor to the throne might end up being the 8th Prince Oscar, the 4th Prince Henry, or the great favorite, Noah. Then Noah prepares to leave his lands and all his household staff says goodbye to him. His fiancée wishes him a good trip, while Indra, on the other hand, comments that he would bet everything on Noah without hesitation. And that is how this anime ends. Do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment Kingdom. A kiss from Bat Kun.